Good morning and welcome to City Hall. We're going to get started with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mark Jardine is the pastor at Chapel Hill United Methodist Church. Mark will lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman McAtee if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But would everyone please stand at this time?
Please bow with me in prayer. O God of mercy and justice, we thank you for the gift of life, the gift of this new day. We thank you for the sacred trust that you have placed upon our mayor and city council and all who serve through this place, O Lord, in this city. We pray, O Lord, a prayer of thanksgiving for our great city, Oklahoma City, and all the blessings you bestowed upon it. We pray in this time, in this chamber, that you would help us to hear one another fully and to discuss and share and resolve issues that need to be resolved. Give us the spirit of service and remind us we are stewards of your authority in all these matters that are before us. We thank you for the city and we thank you for the people. And now, O Lord, as we make decisions, may they be guided by you and give us strength of conviction to live those decisions out each day. Build our community and make it worthy, O Lord, of your trust. We ask this as your sons and daughters and children, confident in your goodness, in your love, in all matters. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Face the flag, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Each month, the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City helps us honor one teacher in the metro area who has risen above her peers and has been selected as the Teacher of the Month. And Jana Pennock is here from Western Heights. Come on up. Let's show our appreciation to Jana and her work. Jana is a kindergarten teacher, and it's all day kindergarten. That's right. We have a resolution. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas Janice Pennock has been named Teacher of the Month for May 2016 by Western Heights Public Schools and the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City. Whereas Jana has been teaching for 10 years, the last 9 at Western Heights Council Grove, teaching kindergarten. Jana's favorite thing about teaching is the relationship building with her students and their families, and she uses many outlets, including home visits, social media pages, emails, and newsletters to strengthen these relationships. Whereas Jana takes on several roles at her school, including being a new teacher mentor and serving on the Behavior Intervention Committee. Whereas Jana participates on the school's leadership team, creating curriculum and studying data to track achievement. And she also represented the district at the International Leadership in Education Conference in 2014 and 15. Whereas Jana was previously named Western Heights Teacher of the Year and South Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce Teacher of the Year. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Oklahoma City that they do hereby recognize and commend Jana Pennock on her selection as May 2016 Teacher of the Month by Western Heights Public Schools and Rotary Club of Oklahoma City.
Sounds all in order, but we will need to vote on this. Probably not the most controversial vote we'll have this morning. Is there a motion? And a second. Cast your votes. It's unanimous. How about that?
I just want to say thank you and for this humbling experience, and I'm sure everyone's aware of the crisis that's going on with education, but I just want you to know that teachers are resilient, and even though we feel like we're kind of in a bad spot, we're going to keep going and we will not give up. So we appreciate your continued support for educators and most importantly for the students of Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Represent your profession very well. Thank you. Congratulations. And we have members of our fire department here today, along with MDA, because it is Fill the Boot Week. I want all 5 of you come forward. We have a proclamation that I'll ask the clerk to read.
Whereas the Oklahoma City Professional Firefighters Association, Local 157, is hosting the annual Fill the Boot campaign to benefit the Muscular Dystrophy Association, called MDA. Whereas the firefighters have partnered with the MDA since 1954 and freely give their time to fill the boot and other MDA campaigns throughout the year. In 2015, Oklahoma City firefighters, through the overwhelming generosity of Oklahoma City residents, raised over $301,000 for the MDA. Whereas these donations support continued research of neuromuscular diseases and help over 2,000 families in Oklahoma with critical medical services and supplies for loved ones affected by these diseases. Now, therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim May 23rd through 28th Firefighter Fill the Boot Week in Oklahoma City, and he encourages all citizens to support this worthwhile cause.
Let's show our appreciation of our friends at the Muscular Dystrophy Association and our firefighters. Kristen?
Like she said, these funds are so crucial to MDA. This week means a lot to us. Last year was the second highest year for these firefighters, so of course this year we hope to beat that goal. And with our funds, this last month we were able to open another free clinic to our patients here in Oklahoma. So without this money, we would not be able to do things like that. So this is really important, and we really encourage all the citizens to support us.
We appreciate that, and the numbers that jumped out at me from the proclamation, over $300,000 raised last year through the generosity of our citizens and also the hard work of our fire department. And 2,000 families benefited from that from all over the state. So please give generously if you can, and I'm sure we're going to do really, really well again this year. But thank you for what you all are doing and obviously your commitment to this cause. Let's show our appreciation one more time. I notice in our audience near the back is the junior ROTC from Putnam City High School. Would you all stand up so we can get a good look at you and show our appreciation to your service? Thank you. Good to have you all here today. We're on item 3B of the council agenda. This is a couple of appointments to the Downtown Design Review Committee. Is there a motion? Move the item. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. And item 3C are my expenses to the U.S. Conference of Mayors event to Indianapolis next month. Is there a motion? Cast your votes. And it passes unanimously. Item 4 is a journal of council proceedings. 4A is to receive the journal for April 26th, and 4B is to approve the journal for April 19th. All right, any comments or questions on the journal? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, there are several this morning. Beginning on page 12 in the consent docket, item 7AT, Councilman Pettis has requested that this item be deferred 2 weeks till May 17th.
Which one was that?
Item 7AT. Moving on to page 15, item 9B1 and 2. The applicant is requesting that this item be deferred 2 weeks till the May 17th meeting to allow the applicant to discuss the item with the councilman.
And that's 9B1 and 2.
Correct.
All right.
And then moving to page 16, under item 9F1B, 8120 Dripping Springs Lane. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured.
Okay.
Item C, 8013 Eagle Circle. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. Moving on to page 17, under the same item 9F1H, 21 North Lynn. We'd like to strike that to re-notify. Item L, 2908 North Robinson. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. Item O, 2350 Northwest 2nd. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. Item T, 322 Northeast 16th. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. Item X, 1829 Northwest 29th. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. Item AC, 700 Southeast 47th. We'd like to strike that to re-notify. And item AE, 404 Northwest 96th. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. And moving to page 17, item number 9G1A, 8013 Eagle Circle. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. Item F, 21 North Lynn. Strike that to re-notify. And on page 18, item L, 2350 Northwest 2nd. Strike to, the owner has secured. Item R, 322 Northeast 16th. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured. And finally, item AC 404 Northwest 96th. We'd like to strike that. The owner has secured.
All right, any other requests for uncontested continuances? Move on to item 6. We have a series of requests for revocable permits. We'll begin with the Capitol Hill Main Street's concept of holding the Cinco de Mayo in Calle dos Cinco, which, if my Spanish is correct, it's on the 5th of May on 25th Street. They're going to hold an outdoor event. Is anyone here representing this organization? Yeah, come on forward so we can hear more about it. Good morning. If you'll just stand at the microphone. So, tell us about this event.
Thank you. We are hosting our Cinco de Mayo on Friday, May 6th. And we'll have the street closed, Southwest 25th, between Harvey and Robinson for music, food trucks, kids' games, and just family fun. So it's all free. We hope you come out.
Sounds wonderful. How many years have you been doing this?
Actually, this is only our second, and we've moved it this year to more central in the district and trying to highlight our businesses that will be open.
Okay. Pete, it's in Ward 4. All right. How about a second? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good luck. Encourage people to come out. All right, item 6B is a request from Freedom, Oklahoma to hold the Equality Run June 26th downtown in Ward 6. Is anyone here representing that organization? Come on up.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marlo Miller. I'm actually on the board of Freedom, Oklahoma, and this is going to be our 4th annual Equality Run, but this is the first year we've taken it out of the park venues and onto the city streets. So 5K, 10K, 1 mile fun run, family-friendly event.
How can people sign up?
We're on Chronotrack, so you can look at us on Facebook through the Freedom Oklahoma page, the Equality Run page, Chronotrack Live, and we're working with DG Productions for the timing company, so they have it listed on their website as well.
All right, and it's June 26th, so people have some time to train.
That's correct.
All right.
Yes.
Meg, you want to
Please
make
do.
a motion here?
I do, and thank you for preparing so far in advance.
Absolutely.
Really grateful for that. I move approval.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 6C is a request from the March of Dimes to hold the March for Babies. This will be on Sheridan Avenue on May 14th, and Tim Miller's here.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Tim Miller. I'm a longtime March of Dimes board member. This coming May 14th, within the next 2 weeks, will be our annual March for Babies event. This is the biggest single fundraiser for the March of Dimes during the year. We hope to raise $250,000. That is our goal. It's interesting, just to make sure everyone knows, that 87 cents out of every dollar that we raise is reinvested in this state. So we're very, very, very proud of that fact. And also, it's interesting to note that premature birth is still the #1 cause of death for babies less than 1 year old, so there's still a lot of work to be done. But we appreciate the work of Drew Watson. He's wonderful to work with every year, as well as Lieutenant Audrey George at with the police department. And If anyone if people want to get involved, you can still get involved with March for Babies. Just the March of Dimes staff said just go to marchforbabies.org, marchforbabies.org.
Okay, and that's May 14th?
May 14th.
Downtown?
Yes.
How far do they have to go? What's the run?
The route is about 2.4 miles.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good. It's in Ward 6, mate.
It is. Thank you for your kind comments about our staff. They do a great job.
Thank
I'd
you very
move
much.
approval.
thank you for
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
All right, item 6D is a request from McNelly's Group to hold the McNelly's Pub Run on May 7th. And this one's also downtown. Emily White, come on up.
Good morning. We're hosting our 6th pub run. We're pretty excited. This year we're raising money for Positive Tomorrows, which we're super excited about. We've done some donations from our own kitchen to help feed those kids during school breaks. So we're excited to actually be able to get them some money to help run their school.
Good.
We're using the same route that we've used the last couple of years. It's worked well. It's a beautiful route through Mesta Park.
What's the best way to sign up?
McNelly'spUbrun.com.
Okay. May 7th from Walker Avenue between 10th and 11th. All right. Thanks, Emily. How about a motion? Meg?
I'd move approval, please.
Okay. Second. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Thanks.
Thanks, Emily.
Item 6E is a request with OKC Garden Fest to host the OKC Garden Fest. Anybody here representing this event? Come on forward. We'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name's Bill Ferris, and I'm from Norman.
Okay.
And I'm here representing the second annual OKC Garden Fest. This is going to be held down in the historic Farmers Public Market District. It's an opportunity for our local small farmers and growers to showcase their products for to the public, and it's also an opportunity to educate the public about the plight of our pollinators and the butterflies that we can help them with planting our native Oklahoma plants and ornamentals. That's about it.
All right, and that's this Saturday?
This Saturday.
This Saturday, okay. Meg, it's in Ward 6.
Really, really busy weekend this Saturday. This is a great event down at the Farmers Market. It's
Oh, yeah,
very
it's a
enjoyable.
lot of good things happening down that
A lot
area.
of good things happening. Move approval.
All right, cast your votes on 6E. It passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thanks and good luck. And finally, item 6F is a request from Uptown 23rd Street District to hold the Uptown Farmers Market on select Sundays throughout the summer. Christina, are you here? Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell
My
us-
name is Christina Mallory Chigorowski. I'm the executive director of Uptown 23rd. And yes, I did dye my hair red, so I'm incognito now. The farmers market is returning. We're so excited to have it for a second year. We're actually moving it to twice a month. Now we're going to have 12 total farmers markets throughout the season. It was such a success last year that we hired a farmers market manager to oversee that process. So it will kick off on the 15th, and then June through October we'll have the first and third Sundays, and then we'll also adding that fifth Sunday in October since it's the day before Halloween. So we thought that'd be fun. So last year we had between 1,000, 2,000 people each market, average over the markets, and then about upwards of 50 vendors. This year we have about 80 vendors on board, so we're a little overwhelmed and super excited.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've heard great things
Thank you.
about the excitement generated, so thank you for going to all the effort to organize this.
Yeah.
We need all the farmers markets we can get.
I agree. What's more...
Win, win, win.
Exactly. What stimulates the local economy more than a farmer?
How about a motion from Ed? It's in Ward 2. Okay. All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks and good luck. All right, we'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. Looks like there are 5 items. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the MFA? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. All right, we have 7 items today. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. I'll note that the golf professionals and members of the Golf Commission are in the audience today, and I see former Mayor Andy Coates is here as a member of the Golf Commission. Andy, thanks. It's always good to see you down at City Hall. appreciate the work of our professionals. I know the first tee event was held at Lake Hefner yesterday. A lot of money raised for that program, which teaches values as well as golf to a lot of inner city kids. So thank you guys for your collective efforts in those areas. All right, we'll adjourn the OCMFA. Nope, I'm on the wrong one. We'll adjourn the OCPPA and convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. A motion on the EAT. All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously.
Mayor, can I just ask a quick question? Dennis, do you know if we're eligible for any additional disaster recovery funds for the increased dollar amount?
Eric is shaking his head at me, and so I guess the answer is no.
It's a shame.
Well, the number of tonnage that was picked up is extraordinary. Eric, you know the number?
Well, I think we bid these contracts on a unit price basis just to establish a unit price. I think we had estimated around 10,000 tons would need to be picked up. So the contracts were based on 5,000 tons each. I think we actually collected almost 67,000 tons. So it was quite a bit more than what we originally estimated.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to accurately estimate how much debris is out there.
We also, though, suspect that people see this as an opportunity, that we're coming by to pick up stuff, to do some extra cleaning up. The idea is that we're picking up the damage from the storm, and it seems like a good opportunity for people to put a lot of other things or do some additional trimming. So, that's all a good thing, but it is driving up the cost of our effort, and it's tougher for us to get the dollars and the federal dollars and the disaster aid. But I mean, it all works out, and the city's looking really good. But I know it took us a long time. We appreciate people's patience on from all that storm damage that's out there. But the number of tons of debris is just staggering. It's just hard to believe, but we appreciate it. Any other comments from council on this issue? All right. Ready to vote the EAT? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. Are there any individual considerations?
Yes, Your Honor. 7 in 5.
And Mayor, I'd like to mention 7L.
Larry? Okay. Okay. All right, and we also have a presentation on the consent docket. Doug Dowler? Doug, yeah, there he is. This is on AE, and has to do with one of the first public stages of the budget process.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be here before you to present the FY17 budget for the City of Oklahoma City. Before I get started, I've got several of my staff here kind of spread out with the crowd here, but I really appreciate all that they've done to help us get to this point. They've worked hard, and I appreciate all that they've done for us here. And maybe if you guys could just stand up just so we know where you are here. So, appreciate all the work that they've done, so thank you.
Thank you.
As we look at the overall proposed budget, the total budget is $1,263 million. That's a decline of about 0.8% from the current budget. You can see the general fund is down about 5% at $414 million in total. Other operating funds are down about 0.5% at $232.2 million. Our non-operating funds are actually up in next year's budget by about 2% to $617 million. The primary funds that are driving that growth are the MAPS 3 sales tax fund and our grants management fund. Those are actually growing in this upcoming year. As we take a look at the position changes, it's a bit more complicated in this year than normally it would be. What we've done with police and fire is what we're calling frozen 69 vacant uniform positions. So 48 in police, 21 in fire. And when we say frozen, what that means is the positions are still there in police and fire. The funding is not there at this current time. And our assumption or our intent is that as revenues improve and increase, then we'll put that funding back, but the positions are already there in police and fire. So these are vacant positions that we're going to continue to hold vacant through next year is our plan. 21 of those in fire are at what was to be added for Station 29. When we saw that the economy was turning down, we delayed the construction of Station 29 and have moved on to remodeling a couple of stations with bond funds. So those 21 positions were there to staff that station. Since that construction has been delayed, the need for those positions is not there at this time. In addition, in police and fire, we have another significant change as we're looking at moving the fire dispatch function from a uniformed staffing to civilian staffing. So you'll see in fire, 9 positions are being reduced in the dispatch function. 9 positions are being added in police for dispatch. Currently, police handles the dispatch function at 911 in terms of the call taking and police dispatching. What we're working towards is cross-training those employees so they can dispatch both police and fire calls and provide a more efficient service there. Again, that's a switch of 9 positions there between police and fire. We have some additions in transportation and parking as well as utilities, but reductions in most other departments. And in fact, when you look across the city as a whole, we're down 44 positions, just about 1% compared to the current year's budget. This slide here gives you a little better picture just over history in terms of where we've been with our positions. As I said, it's a decline in the current year's budget of 44 positions. That puts us at 4,699 authorized positions for FY17. But we had seen 5 years in a row of increases in positions. This is our first decrease here since the last recession. Just want to talk briefly about where the budget fits in our strategic planning process. You've seen this slide before. Our Leading for Results process, our performance management process, really begins each year with that citizen survey that we're going to be again conducting. It'll be starting here in a few weeks. That drives the council priorities, which feeds into department strategic business plans, which then factor into how they propose their budgets that the city manager's office and we work towards to present to you this proposed budget. So you can see that cycle. Again, as we go through the year, we're collecting data, reporting to you and to the city leaders, evaluating our progress, and making decisions, again, that get reflected in each year's budget. Just as a reminder, in terms of the council priorities that were adopted almost 2 years ago by council, provide a safe and secure community, maintain strong financial management, develop a transportation system that works for all citizens, promote thriving neighborhoods, support high-quality public education, and enhance recreation opportunities and community wellness. And you'll see those logos throughout the budget book in all those places that are affected or that affect those priorities. So as we turn now to really what drives the budget, our revenues, I want to look again at that big picture, $1.26 billion budget. Taxes is the biggest source there, 46.3%. That's about $586 million in taxes. Sales tax, of course, is our largest source. And in this, for our total budget, it's $423 million that we receive from sales tax. Now, when we look at the total budget, the taxes category also includes property tax in the debt service fund. That's $84 million, and that goes to pay off our general obligation bonds through property tax. That's all we can use property tax for. Fees and charges include things like franchise fees, business licenses, building permits, ambulance membership fees, stormwater drainage fees. That accounts for about 13.7% of the total. Transfers in are transfers from our trusts that cover the operating costs for water, wastewater, solid waste, and airport service. That's 7%. Federal grants make up about 3.6% of our total at $45.6 million. And fund balance represents the second largest revenue source at 27.6%, or $349 million. As I mentioned before, the MAP sales tax fund really represents over half that total at $193 million. Again, we've been saving up those sales tax dollars as they come in, and now as we're getting further into the projects, we're spending those dollars to deliver the projects that citizens expect. As we kind of narrow in a little bit on the operating revenue side of things, what funds our operations, again, taxes are the largest piece there, $375 million, and again, sales tax being the largest piece there. It's $314 million of that $646 million total. Other taxes in the category include use tax, hotel motel tax, and we get some small pieces from the state for tobacco, alcoholic beverage, motor fuels, and commercial vehicle taxes. Fees and charges are about 26% of the operating budget. Transfers in, as we talked about before, 13.6%. And then other revenue and fund balance are very small pieces there at about 2.5% of the remaining total. So as we look at the general fund budget, this is what really funds the bulk of the operations that citizens often think about. Sales tax now is 52.7% of the total at $248 million. The primary source of the other taxes categories are use tax at $37.9 million, or 9.1%. Franchise fees represent 10.1%. That's what we get from utility companies that pay us for use of our rights-of-way. Fines total $23 million, represent 5.6% of general fund revenue. Fees and charges make up 17.2%. Again, that's things like building permits and wage adjustment from police and fire, those types of things. And then other revenue, again, a very small piece, interest and other miscellaneous expenses are 2.3% of that $414.2 million total. As we look at expenditures, we'll look again at that overall big total, $1.26 billion. And these are the categories that are outlined in the State Municipal Budget Act. You can see that personal services is the largest category at about 36%. But when we include the non-operating funds, you'll see that capital outlays are a significant portion of the total at 32.6%, and debt service at 8.8%. As we narrow in on operating expenditures, personnel becomes a bigger piece of that. These are the operations of the city, and again, people are what provide those operations, so 70.1% of our operating budget goes for personal services. And you can see when we get into operations, capital is a very small piece of that, less than 1%. When we look at the general fund, again, personal services, largest piece there at 72.7%. Other services at 20.3% include utilities, contracts for services, our payments to COTPA, internal service funds, charges like IT, fleet, risk management, and print shop. And again, capital is really almost non-existent in the general fund, but what we do is a transfer to our capital improvement projects fund for $4.25 million to fund capital improvements like our fleet replacement and building upkeep and those sorts of things. So that's really reflected in our transfers category in the general fund. As we look at kind of general fund expenses by service area, again, public safety dominates our general fund budget at 64.4%. General government comes in at 8.7%, and that's because all general government is funded through the general fund. Public services are the second largest category at 17.1% and include public works, development services, and planning. And finally, culture and recreation in the general fund is made up of the Parks and Recreation Department and the cost for operating the Cox Convention Center and Chesapeake Energy Arena. So as we develop the budget each year, we follow standards and best practices, and of course, Oklahoma state law and the Municipal Budget Act. And what you'll see, there's a section within the budget book that we call our fund summary. That's what's officially adopted. That's what follows the Municipal Budget Act. The Government Finance Officers Association has a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award that recognizes governments that follow guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting and GFOA's best practices on budgeting. Each year, our budget's reviewed by GFOA and our peers to see if we meet those practices. And we're one of only 5 jurisdictions in Oklahoma that has received the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award this past year. And this was our 28th year to receive that award. We've placed in front of you there a copy of the budget book. It's there at your desk there. We've got kind of a colorful cover for you here this year. And I just thought I'd take a couple of seconds. We've got the tabs in here to help direct you to the different sections within the budget book. The city manager's introduction in A. B is the financial summaries. That's the portion that I mentioned that's adopted. That's the official budget of the city. But then we provide extra information in the section C on department budgets. So a lot of information there about their performance indicators that departments use and the specific programs within each department. Our fund summaries, which actually I misspoke. Fund summaries are the detail that is adopted in the budget that you'll be voting on in June. The capital budget provides an overview of our capital expenses and an appendix with all of the explanation of the various terms and the procedures that we follow. So what we've got before you is actually a resolution to set set 3 public hearings for May 10th, May 24th, and June 7th. And during those public hearings, we'll have presentations from departments, the major departments, on their budgets, the changes that they're looking at, and the performance that they expect to achieve over the coming year. We're scheduled to vote on the budget on June 14th, and of course July 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and again, we'll be back for several weeks to talk about this as well between now and June.
Yeah. Questions for Doug today? We'll have lots of opportunities over the next few weeks and months to discuss the details. Doug, thank you for all the work, and council has all been supplied with this large phone book type
Yes, it's a lot to go through.
procedure
Yes.
is of the proposed budget from the city staff that we'll be looking through.
And that, the book will also be available out on okc.gov in terms of citizens wanting to take a look at it. The full document's available there as well.
Encourage them to do so. Doug, thank you. Any other presentations on the consent docket?
Yes, on item AR, which is the conceptual design report for the MAPS 3 Convention Center. Todd Voth and Adam Paulich are here from Populous to make a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and the City Council.
Good morning.
We're very excited today to present our conceptual design for the new Oklahoma City Convention Center. As many of you may know, we have been working very hard on this with the MAPS group, staff members. We've also had a couple of presentations to the subcommittee and also now the advisory board. And what you're going to see today is the proposed concept that we want to take forward through preliminary design and then final design. And obviously, we'd like you to ask questions if you have questions, but we're very excited about the opportunity to create a facility that distinguishes you in the marketplace and also delivers what you really want for your community. So also, I think it's important to note that the concept that you're about to see is within budget, so we're feeling really good about that. My associate, Adam Paulich, is now going to take you through the process that we've gone through and then also show you the concept design. So feel free to ask questions. Thank you very much. Adam.
Thanks, Todd. It's good to see some of you again, Council. So this is as Todd said, this is a really exciting time for us, at least as we move through the design process. The conceptual design phase is complete, and as Todd said, we're feeling really good about where we're at within budget. We obviously wouldn't want to show you guys anything that wasn't acceptable or within striking range. So we have the presentation. It's broken down into 3 segments, a little bit of history of how we ended up at this final conceptual design, some of the stuff that we're planning on doing to fit the building on the site, and then the actual layout of the building and how it will operate as a facility. Over the years, Populous, we've been running our convention center practice for about 10 years, and we've been very specific about mining data and trends in the industry over these years. And applying that data now to this facility in Oklahoma City is of the utmost importance. Over the years, it was about buildings that function properly, and as we've moved forward, we see the industry going more towards a hospitality-focused design, and we understand that this is what users want, and this is what's going to make this facility function. It's going to make this facility sellable, specifically for Oklahoma City and the new convention center market. So keeping all those aspects in mind as we move through the design is extremely important. Through our initial design process, we did some very specific case studies on convention centers that we feel are global industry leaders, and we definitely feel that we have a unique opportunity here in Oklahoma City to make this facility one of these global leaders. Some of the examples were San Antonio Convention Center, Vancouver Convention Center in Anaheim, California, Switzerland, Swiss Tech Convention Center, Nashville, the Irving Convention Center just south of here, and then, of course, a global leader in Sydney. These are all projects that we're extremely familiar with. Some of them are our own. Some we have worked closely with, and we would take the experience and the trends that these facilities have set and apply them and make them unique to the Oklahoma City Convention Center and how we move forward with this design. This is our retirement slide. As we all know, the Convention Center was on a different site approximately a year ago, and we established this list of design principles. Since the Convention Center site has moved, we have redeveloped these design principles to focus on the East Park site. What these design principles are, they are a running list of how we are going to make this project successful. By establishing these early and referencing them continuously throughout the design, we know that we are going to check all the boxes to make this building function and make it what it needs to be. I always run through these and spend some time with these because of their importance. Number one is a unique visitor experience to Oklahoma City. It needs to be unique within the industry to make this building appealing for the meeting planners and the people that are going to be bringing money into Oklahoma City for these shows. Uniting the pedestrian district, making this facility feel comfortable within the downtown core and the adjacent park development. Division of shows. We talk about the ability to never say no. When someone comes and wants to put on a show or a convention in Oklahoma City, we want to give this person the ability to customize this show and allow them the flexibility to essentially have a kit of parts to plan their show to their liking. Elevated ballroom. We call the ballroom the living room of the city. How this ballroom relates to the park, to the downtown vision, is going to be extremely important. It'll be the most desirable, unique space within this facility and hopefully within the downtown core. Urban integration. I spoke on the park. We'll see a little bit about that later. Expansion. We don't really know where the industry is going. We can guess, and we have some insight, but we want to design this facility with the ability to easily expand in the future and be adaptable for whatever comes, whatever way the industry decides to go. We want to make it easy that when we decide to expand, that it's cost effective and the building still functions appropriately. And then adjacent development opportunities. With the addition of the park, the new streetcar, a potential hotel, convention center, the surrounding area is really going to see a lot of new and exciting energy. So being specific about where adjacent development can happen is something that we obviously take into consideration. Back in December when we kicked off this conceptual design, we started the process with basically stacking blocks, and we had about 40 options that proof of concept to make sure that the building would actually fit on the site. We took these 40 options and basically brought them down to about 11. These 11 options turned into 8 options on how the building could lay out and function on the specific site. These 8 options turned into these 3 options. Through the course of this development, we were working very closely with our MAPS subcommittee and our MAPS team. We are taking feedback, design ideas, and influence from them on how we can derive these options. So this was about a month ago. We came in with these 3 options. We then ended on one option, which is our final conceptual design. It's basically a hybrid of all the best parts, you could say, of these 3 options. And again, we received great feedback from our MAPS team and our subcommittee to get to this point. So it's really important to understand the site and how this building is going to relate to the surrounding development, the surrounding downtown district. Our first move off the bat is to relocate Broadway 200 feet to the east. What that does is it allows us the appropriate acreage to allow the building to fit comfortably on the site and function how we would expect a world-class facility to function. The adjacent streetcar stop, we've had some great coordination meetings with the streetcar team. We've had meetings with their subcommittee, and developing an experience that can relate to the new streetcar and making that connection as pedestrian friendly as possible, incorporating the park and the potential hotel development and the new front door of the convention center. Where the streetcar stop is located now, it's approximately about an 800-foot walk. So we're looking at about 2 blocks from the streetcar to the front door of the convention center. Although that parking is not in our scope of work, we have been tasked with citing specific locations on where vehicles can fit on the site. As it stands right now, we think that we can fit approximately 750 vehicles in surface parking lots just directly to the south and east of the convention center. And we're now in the middle of a parking study, about 50% in, on how we can incorporate parking within the footprint of the convention center. Right off the bat, we think that there is the possibility of up to 780 vehicles above the convention center loading dock, and there's also some ideas floating around there about potentially going below the convention center or a standalone garage. Again, we're still in the middle of this. It's not in our scope, but it's important that we take that into consideration as we design the building. We've cut 2 site sections just to show the scale of this building. I think we kind of get lost in the scale that we work in sometimes. And it's extremely important to understand the size of the facility that we're dealing with. To the left of this section, you can see we're looking to the east. You see Chesapeake Arena, Chesapeake Energy Arena. It's approximately 108 feet tall. So just to the right of that, south on Robinson, our facility, as it's designed today, is anywhere between 95 to 100 feet tall. So that's the height and the scale of the building. It will have that same kind of civic presence and that energy that you expect from a facility of this type, and it'll kind of piggyback with the size and scale of what's happening over there at Chesapeake Energy Arena. So as we look north, this is a good comparison because it really shows the size of the adjacent park development. East-west, the park is approximately 2 full city blocks. And if you look at our site, we're about a full city block and a half. So when we're talking about land mass and scale, the site of our facility is approximately the same width of the park. So again, just to reiterate that this building is going to be large and it's going to really command that presence and that attention to detail that we, of course, would want it to be successful. Along with the streetcar team, we've had some great coordination with the park team and the park subcommittee and how this facility can best integrate with the adjacent park development. It's interesting, in all the convention centers that we've worked on around the world, one of the #1 things that people expect is access to open space. And what is happening here is the city of Oklahoma City has probably done the dirty work for us and gave us this great front door for the convention center, something that we can't take credit for, and we can only give it to the decision makers. And we would expect our convention center to connect to all the wonderful program of the park that's happening along Robinson, the Park Plaza on the northeast corner, the food service aspects of the park, the Market Grove and the Picnic Grove, the food trucks and the farmers market, the monumental fountain, and then relationships with the event lawns to the north and the south of the park. If you can imagine the way that you lease a convention center or sell a convention center, you could see simultaneous events happening between the park and the ballroom, the park and the exhibit hall, dinners before and after. So it's very important to create the synergy between these leasable spaces, between the two developments. Views are always important. A convention center is a snapshot of your city. Some people, they might only see the convention center in their stay in Oklahoma City. So it's important to give them access to everything that we have to offer. Because of the height of our facility, we will, of course, have dynamic views to the downtown core, back to Bricktown, south to the Skydance Bridge, and it'll be above the tree line of the park. So imagine on multiple levels being able to have a panoramic view of the park, which I think will be really nice. But more importantly, giving access and views down to Robinson. With the program that's happening along Robinson, we really want to frame and capture that energy for the people inside the convention center and people directly outside the convention center so that you can really show off this development that we have right next door. Over the course of some of our subcommittee meetings, sound transmission has been of a bit of concern from the park for large events. We have a few things working for us. The stage facility of the park is actually facing away from our building, so we don't think that the sound will be a huge issue from large events. What we're really worried about is just the noise along Robinson, just kind of ground level noise and traffic. So there's ways to mitigate that, high quality of materials, laminate glass, natural protection, landscape, and good landscape design will mitigate those issues. So as we move forward through design, we'll obviously be keeping sound in check. Our project right now is in Anaheim. It's right outside of Disneyland, and kids screaming on roller coasters all day. So we've done it before, and we know how to make it a comfortable experience for people inside the convention center. It's funny. I think we've been here a dozen times over the past 3 months, and we've seen almost every season already. So weather is obviously a factor in how we protect the facility. Sun, wind, and rain. We get some pretty heavy winds here. So the way that the building is oriented is going to be key in protecting patrons on the inside and the outside of the facility. Some access to some outdoor terraces that overlook the park. We understand that the way that comfort is key, and people are going to need protected in these outdoor spaces. As far as sun exposure, again, in some of our subcommittee meetings, we've received some feedback of a little bit of nervousness that the main facade is west-facing. We understand that it's not ideal, but every building has a west-facing facade, and there are ways to manage it. And we've come up with a diagram here. We call this our science experiment. UV light is what damages materials inside the building. Infrared light is what heats up the inside of the building, making it uncomfortable. But visible light is what people want. It's the daylight. It's what makes people feel good. It's natural, the wellness aspect. So we need to come up with a way to block out the harmful rays, bring in the visible light make it an enjoyable experience. So the ways that we plan on mitigating this western facade is obviously orientation, deep architectural overhangs, low emissive glass, shading mechanisms, ceramic print, and then some trees and landscape. We're confident through a combination of this kind of kit of parts, that as we move through design, we will successfully make this a comfortable, high-functioning, well-performing western facade that is going to be that world-class, first-class experience that we would expect. So now we'll get into the design a little bit. As it stands today, we're delivering the full program within budget. That's 200,000 square feet of exhibit hall. That's 45,000 square feet of flexible meeting rooms, and that's 30,000 square foot ballroom. The building is broken up across 3 levels. Call it 3.5 levels, kind of like a split level house, and we'll walk through this. We have our first level, which is our ground level. It's our exhibit hall level. We have a middle level, which is a mezzanine. We're calling it meeting room level 1. We have a level directly above that, which is full of meeting room program, meeting room level 2. And then we have our ballroom level, which sits at the top of the facility. There's another section where you can see how the ballroom stacks on top of the facility and cantilevers over the Robinson experience, providing those dynamic views that we spoke about and some natural protection from the western-facing sun to those lower ballroom levels, or those lower meeting room levels, sorry. The ground level, we envision 3 main entries into the facility. We have our civic entry, which is our connection to the potential hotel, the downtown entrance, and the new potential streetcar stop. We have our park entry, which is directly adjacent to the program from the park. This is where we imagine our main connection to those food service programs and those activity programs that are happening in the park. And then we have our pedestrian entry to the south, and that'll be the direct connection for most of our surface parking patrons and people approaching the building from the south. Typically, your meeting room program is the most active space of your convention center, and we want this program to be visible. So we pulled some of this meeting room program to the ground level to make those your everyday sellable meeting room spaces so that it activates that ground plane. So even when the convention center might not be booked, there's still the ability to sell these meeting rooms on the ground level to provide a little bit of activity within the footprint and make the building seem a bit alive. Another subcommittee comment was the walking distance, the potential hotel. Right now, from the location of the potential hotel to the front door of our facility, we're looking at about a 90-foot walk. That's outdoor. It's approximately a fourth of a city block. There'll also be an elevated enclosed connection to supplement this as well, directly above. You know, Todd always quotes that most of the money from a convention center comes in from the back. So we understand that this facility needs to function. It needs to be highly functional. We want load in and load out times to be as quick as possible to allow the building to turn over and be the most efficient and maximize its functionality. So right now, loading is planned to the east, directly off Broadway, a load in and load out scenario for trucks. The service core that allows access to all different levels and back of house service to all program areas. The second level is full of meeting rooms. And over the years, we've seen that the days of sitting in a dark meeting room are slowly coming to an end. Each meeting room wants its own identity, wants its own presence, wants its own access to natural light. So as we move through design, we're going to be addressing these issues and trying to give these meeting rooms that appropriate treatment to bring it out to the facade, allow it to get the natural daylight with still providing the blackout capabilities that you would expect in a convention center, but really trying to rethink the model of how these meeting rooms are used and rented and leased and available. This next slide is just showing the potential of the hotel connection. We understand that it needs to be there. We know that it should not just be a durable tube. It needs to be beautiful. It needs to function highly. Potential of adding some program on there. We do think that the best level for it to connect would be on one of these meeting rooms, allowing guests to travel straight up to the ballroom level or down to the ground. A lot of this rides on the potential of the hotel development, but we need to be conscious about how this facility starts to connect to the adjacent development. So we're starting to think about that right now. This upper level of meeting rooms is what we're calling our junior ballroom and flexible meeting room level. The case study I have to the right is of Anaheim. We were tasked with 2 100,000 square foot spaces that could be divisible into 36 unique meeting rooms. What we're doing here is we have two 10,000 square foot spaces on this level that we imagine would be divisible into 4 1,800 square foot rooms. Allowing this level of flexibility is what's going to separate this building from its competitors and make it more appealing to the people that are trying to sell and lease these shows. The upper level is our ballroom experience. What we've done is we've taken this and we've placed it on its own level to give it the attention and the architectural statement that it deserves. We envision this ballroom not just being a black box that's sitting on top of the facility, but being a transparent, customizable program element that can grow and expand from its 30,000 square foot capacity all the way to a 46,000 square foot capacity by incorporating the outdoor pre-function in this outdoor terrace that you're seeing here. Some of these precedent images on the side are there just to address that we understand that this is going to be a key element of the facility. It's going to require a bit of architectural attention, and this could potentially be that civic statement that we would all expect from a building of this size, and it just has a lot of potential to be really exciting. So, again, as we move forward through design, you'll start to see some of these images that we hope will be compelling. So, I touched on earlier expansion, just being conscious about where expansion happens and how it happens. We will obviously take that into consideration moving forward. The way that the building sits on the site is going to be key. In our last subcommittee meeting, we were talking about some traffic studies and how cars start to circulate around the site. Now that we have the building sited with the appropriate egress, now's the time that we will be starting to study how cars and pedestrians start to circulate and enter and exit and make it a comfortable experience for the way all people arrive to the facility. So again, one of those next step things that we will be taking into consideration as we move through preliminary report. That's really all I have right now. I appreciate any questions or concerns. We'd love to answer them. Thank you.
What type of issues or concerns are you getting from the subcommittee?
So the subcommittee, specifically, they were concerned about the west-facing facade. And as I said earlier, we're still really early in the analysis of that. We are not nervous about it at all. We know that there are a whole host of ways that we can protect and make that as comfortable as possible. And I know I keep referencing Anaheim. It's our most recent project right now, but we have the exact same situation, west-facing. We've done some environmental models that show how the sun hits on the facade, and we were very specific on where we added the shading fins, high-performance glass, and some kind of ceramic print to really protect the people on the inside of the facility. Another concern was the traffic. Our good friend Larry Nichols brought it up in the last subcommittee. Basically, the way that the building is sited right now, we're really trying to look hard in vehicular drop-offs for people that are getting dropped off at the convention center and your average convention goer that's coming in on a coach bus. So now as we move forward and as this parking situation is starting to really shake out where the parking is going to be, we can now start to be really specific about where some of these experiences are happening. So it's a natural step for the next stage, and we will obviously get there and make it as seamless, as comfortable as possible. The last thing that was brought up was the meeting rooms to the glass. Right now we're showing just a select few of them that have access to the daylight. And so we're tasking ourselves with now studying how we can maximize that experience and bring more of that meeting room program out to the front facade to give those meeting rooms that kind of address and access to natural light that they deserve. So those are really the three kind of, I don't want to say issues, we'll call them opportunities to make the building function a bit better. But that's really the feedback that we received to date.
Okay. Comments or questions from council? Yeah, Ed?
So, I mean, it looks like we're effectively doubling the footprint with the surface parking lot. I would imagine, I mean, that surface parking lot, that's basically what, I guess, we approved the TIF funds for the land acquisition around the convention center footprint a couple of weeks ago, right?
Are you asking if MAPS $3 are building that parking lot?
I'm asking if the TIF allocation that we just approved in the last month for land acquisition south of the convention center, is that going for this surface parking lot footprint?
Councilman, I think Kathy O'Connor is coming in the room to answer that question.
And I may need you to repeat the question because I was running in as you were talking.
So in the last month, we approved, I think, a TIF allocation for land acquisition south and east of the convention center.
Correct.
Is that land going to be, is that where this surface parking lot land is coming from?
No, this surface parking lot that's shown here is actually on the expansion area for the convention center. So that land is being purchased by MAPS 3.
This land for the surface parking lot?
Yeah, this isn't necessarily a great perspective, but most of this lot is, the land to the south of the convention center is the expansion site.
Okay.
And further south is where you authorized the TIF money, south of 7th Street.
So south of this surface parking lot?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
The surface parking lot that you see here is between 6th and 7th Street.
Is there a way to, I mean, aesthetically, I'm thinking that's not going to be, is there a way to shield it so that the frontage on Robinson either could be development or behind some kind of?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting comment. We were just kind of talking about that the other day back in the office, what that experience will be like. Obviously, what you're seeing right now as far as surface parking is kind of a placeholder, just holding that there, knowing that it's a test fit of how many cars could potentially fit there. Right now, that development between 6th and 7th is actually not in our scope, but we want to be very conscious on how we can provide the the appropriate avenue to make that successful. What happens with parking, we will obviously be coordinating with our MAPS team on how that is developed. But we, as it stands right now, that's really just a placeholder on how that parking exists.
I guess the only caution of it, I mean, you guys have repeated 10 to 15 times that this has come in on budget, but to me, if you don't have any parking whatsoever for a convention center, you're not in budget. I mean, you have $250 million and not any money budgeted for parking. I mean, that to me seems problematic. That you're going to have to go outside MAPS 3 to. I mean, this will not function, I guess, without parking, and you have to go outside MAPS 3 to make that happen. So to me, that's not being in budget. You think that's a fair?
In fairness, we can, as the architectural design team, we can really only comment on where our scope begins and where our scope ends. And right now in our contract, we are tasked with locating potential parking that's outside of our scope. So we understand that parking does need to happen to make this building function, which is why we are coordinating with the appropriate people within the city. We've had good meetings with Embark and the way that the parking is going to work. However, it is not within our direct project budget.
I'm curious, in other cities that you've worked, how standard is it to design a convention center but not design the parking? I mean, in other cities, are they typically done together?
Sometimes it's either or. For example, we're working in Los Angeles right now, and parking is a separate entity. But just south of Los Angeles, we're in Anaheim, and we are in charge of providing the parking. It really comes down to an operational perspective from the city on who's going to collect the revenue, who's going to operate it. Most of the time we see that the convention center doesn't actually operate the parking. It's actually another city authority. So it kind of goes by each unique jurisdiction on how we do this. What we see here is not unique. We've dealt with it before.
So your options that you're kind of anticipating is a large L-shaped surface parking lot, and then what was the other?
So
780.
Right now, we're studying the potential of putting a parking garage above the loading dock, so allowing cars to park within the footprint of the convention center and give them that direct access into the building from that parking garage. So the surface parking, if you could imagine, is more like a temporary solution to allow for easy expansion of the facility. And then when the facility expands, surface parking goes away, and then we could address parking with a standalone garage to the east or south of the facility, or adding additional parking within the footprint of the building.
What's a ballpark figure of what it would cost to build parking over the loading dock?
Right now, For structured parking, you're looking at something, $26,000 a space. So if we can do 780 spaces, I don't want to do the math in my head, but that's really what we're dealing with. It's a substantial amount of money to park cars over the loading dock, and we think that the surface parking is a good solution to complement that for this first phase.
Okay. So that'd be about $20 million to do that.
Yeah, it's $20 to $25 million for a garage of that size.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? David?
It's difficult to get too excited about a convention center until you start looking at some of the renderings. And so thank you for presenting these. And I do have to say, it's been impressive to see how closely the various groups have worked together, the convention center, the streetcar, the parks, looking at all aspects of bringing in a convention center. And I just would like to say it again, I've mentioned it in the subcommittees, that with the ballroom being the living room to Oklahoma City, I hope we really put a lot of emphasis and look very closely at making that the project where we would put in the public art. One thing, this ballroom, if it's, which I think it will be, open to not only convention type activities, but it can be rented out by a variety of groups. So just like the Cowboy Hall of Fame's facilities is utilized by people throughout Oklahoma City and throughout the state, I think this can too. And we just, I think, need to make it as nice and exciting as possible. And then you throw in the potential for whether it's a balcony or just getting closer to the windows facing the park. I think it'll create just a tremendous environment for any kind of activity. So, thank you. I'm excited. I think this is going to be truly a unique, exciting facility here in downtown Oklahoma City.
Thank you.
I think just a quick comment also. I think as you were moving through your timeline of how things have changed in the industry, I believe I saw the word authenticity down here in the 2015, and I've been kind of a bear about materials and finishes and how critically important this space is going to be Oklahoma City and to really represent us. I had a chance to visit the great facility you did in Phoenix, and I've seen some others. My message, if there is one, is we don't want to be Anaheim.
Yeah.
We want to have all of the things right, but we really want to be Oklahoma City, so that when people leave here, they remember where they've been because of the true sense of place that you've created for us.
Absolutely. That is, spirit of place is what we call it. It's the driving factor in every design decision. This is your facility to operate for the next 60 to hopefully 100 years, so it has to be for the people of Oklahoma City. Completely understand.
Another word that you used was multicultural attendance. Can you give that definition of multicultural attendance?
So we say multicultural. That also kind of means multi-generational, how the typical, the traditional convention is slowly transforming with the way that technology is integrated into these facilities. People don't expect to be at this facility all day for 3 or 4 days straight. You have to give them the opportunity in the various ways, whether that's through access to the park or access to downtown or access through technology, to kind of plug in or plug out or whichever way. So really kind to plan and program this facility to allow that flexibility for all generations and all cultures is key on this being successful. It can't be a stagnant, neighbor to the park. It has to be an evolving, living organism that is completely transforming to the industry. And so we think that we have a pretty good handle on what has happened and where things are going. So that is just key on how we would really envision this building operating and transforming in the future.
Other comments or questions? All right, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Any other presentations on the consent docket?
No, sir.
All right. Okay. Okay. Mark, you wanted to talk about N5?
Thank you, Your Honor. One of the things that I hear about quite frequently is concern in Ward 8 in the north and northwest corner, north of 150th, about some of the roads. And I'm happy to announce that the final plans and specifications are to be advertised for bids for improving the road on northwest 164th between Portland Avenue and North May Avenue. This is a $2.5 million project. It's expanding the 2-lane roads into 4 lanes. And what I'm really excited about is one portion will include a 5-lane section, which will be quite helpful for safety for some of the residential developments in that area, including Rose Creek, Regency Point, and Ironstone. So I'm happy to announce that this bid is going to occur, and the project is anticipated to start in the summer of 2016, Your Honor. The other thing I needed to mention, which is on a separate item after talking with Kenny Jordan, is item 7Y. I'm going to need to pull for a separate vote, Mayor. Specifically, this is a resolution dealing with a potential moratorium, and I represent the family that owns and develops a portion of Brighton Point, which is within this area. Mr. Jordan has assured me that there will not be a moratorium that is affecting Brighton Point, but just to avoid any appearance of impropriety, I think I should abstain.
Okay. Meg, you wanted to talk about 7L too?
I did, Mayor. I'm really happy to say that this is a resolution that will approve a loan agreement with the AIDS support program with funds coming out of our multifamily rehab program that's part of our consolidated plan and our community development block grant funds to do a complete rehabilitation of 2 group home facilities. This is part of the HOPWA program, or Homeless Persons Living with AIDS and HIV. The Wins House has been a fabulous program and success for many years, but those properties have fallen into disrepair that we should not allow. And so I'm really delighted to see that this work will be done on both facilities on Northwest 17th and Northwest 18th Street and bring them up to very acceptable living conditions.
Okay, and Colin, is it Rayleigh? Yeah, Colin, come up. He asked to speak on that same item that Meg just referred to. Good morning. Colin, we'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Colin Rayleigh, and my address is 3030 Northwest 19th Street. So I'm a special education teacher at Putnam City High School, and I also serve as the president of the board of directors for the AIDS support program. We own and operate the Wins House and the Wins Family House in Gatewood. We own the 2 homes with 11 units, and we provide transitional and supportive housing for people, individuals and families living with HIV and AIDS. In 2017, we'll celebrate our 30th anniversary. The homes, however, will celebrate their 100th anniversary in 2025 and 2028. So what we do is, I'd say 80% of our applicants come to us from off the street or out of jail. And as I said, we serve people who are homeless, near homeless, or have barriers to housing and are infected with HIV or AIDS. We try to transition them out into stable, permanent housing. So, like I said, a lot of our residents come to us from off the streets or out of jail, and they go through a program while in the house. They also have other barriers, typically, that include mental health and substance abuse needs, and we seek to address those and then transition them out into stable, independent, permanent living. So I would appreciate your support.
Yeah. Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it. Appreciate your work, too. All right, Larry, you wanted to speak on M?
Yes, and also, Your Honor, I thought that Mark wanted to speak on Y, so I'd also like to speak on Y also, if I could.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. On M, I've asked Eric to come in. We've talked about, and Mark just alluded to the fact that there's some infrastructure work being done in the newer neighborhoods in northwest Oklahoma City. This happens to be involving some street projects from the 2007 bond program in the, what I would call the inner city portion of Oklahoma City. These are neighborhoods that were designed years ago. That provides a challenge for us because we're going to put sidewalks in, and the neighborhoods were not platted to accommodate sidewalks, so that's a challenge. One of the neighborhoods was even probably rural several years ago, and so some of the drainage issues are more rural-oriented than city-oriented, so that's going to present a challenge for them. So with that being said, the neighborhoods in question, one of the neighborhoods goes from 10th to 23rd on north and south, and from east and west, from Meridian to Ann Arbor. And that's one of the neighborhoods that's going to have the streets resurfaced and sidewalks put in where applicable. And then the other neighborhood is between Rockwell and MacArthur and 10th and 16th. And that's going to be the one that will have probably the greater challenges as far as drainage. So if you would, we're authorizing the bids to be solicited now, I believe, Eric, on this item of agenda. What kind of a time schedule and what else would you like to add that the neighbors can expect as we move forward on these two projects?
So as Councilman mentioned, we do have two separate projects, and so what you're approving today are the final plans for us to go out and seek those bids from general contractors. The bids would be received in June. But with that, the first project is about a $1.8 million GeoBond project, and our second one is about a $2.2 million. So significant resurfacing projects in both the areas that were previously outlined. Each of our residentials do have challenges, and we look to work with the individual residents, making sure that those sidewalks are constructed where we don't impact their driveways or their access to their homes. So the contractors that are selected and the ones that have been doing a lot of the work in the city, they're becoming very familiar with this process. And so we expect that to be the same in this area as well. But there is just a general move with a lot of our GeoBond projects that we should expect to see a lot more neighborhood resurfacing coming into the future. And of course, these two are starting out in Ward 3 with many more to come. The time frame is going to be generally about 1 year. So with the sidewalks, it does pose some new challenges, but we'll start in the summer of 16 on both projects and expect to finish in about a year, summer of 17.
Thank you, Eric.
All right.
Then the next issue we go from the old neighborhoods to a new project. Item Y was precipitated because of the development of the southwest loop of the Kilpatrick Turnpike, and there's a possibility afoot, and that's what this particular item addresses, where the State Department, the Department of Transportation, I believe, has offered to party up and partner with us about widening Sarah Road from Southwest 29th to Southwest 59th. That's an area that the neighbors out there are vitally concerned about. There's a school in that area that causes challenges in the morning and the evening. The traffic volume has increased. So with their participation in the next bond issue, the 2017 bond program, we're looking at funding our part of that project to get that widened. In addition, there was some consideration given. The Department of Turnpikes asked for a moratorium on developing new houses in the area where the new turnpike will be going. That area has not been finalized yet, but we have been told that such a moratorium is not possible, but there are some occasions where a moratorium might be applicable in certain conditions. So that's why this particular resolution says it will be only used where it is conformed by existing law. And Kenny, would you like to speak to that?
Yes. You know, the memo and the resolution both say to the extent permitted by law. The mere fact of putting a turnpike through here is not a sufficient basis for us to deprive people of all use of their property. So there would have to be some unusual justification for that. Right now, Dan and I don't see it, so I seriously doubt that there will be a moratorium. And also, for example, you have developments ongoing that are in the process, like the Brighton Point development. It would not affect those. I believe it's even already been platted.
Kenny, can the city have a moratorium on extending infrastructure to an area?
Not, you mean to affect the state? We could not affect the state. As far as the city decides where to extend it. That's within the city's prerogative to decide where they're going to extend infrastructure.
So Is this binding? I mean, so we're saying that if we do a 2017 general obligation bond, we want 12 million of it to be on this project. Is that what we're saying today?
That we, is that on the Sarah Road project?
Yes.
We support the Sarah Road project with the Department of Transportation. Yes. Essentially that we support it. It's not a final decision that you put $12 million into the project, but it says we support that.
And Councilman, that's the entire project cost. The Department of Transportation would pay for half of that, plus all the engineering.
So we're talking about 6 million of the next GEO bond towards this project.
If that estimate is correct, yes.
And would you, I mean, this, again, this is a situation where the traffic count's less than 10,000 vehicles per day. Would you expect that to increase?
I would, and ODOT, along with OTA, expect it to increase because the plan for the Turnpike extension includes an interchange at Sarah Road, which they believe is going to drastically increase the traffic on that arterial.
Okay.
At Sarah Road and where?
I can steal the map from Mr. Jordan. I can tell you where. It's actually what's called a split diamond. Two of the movements, the west or the eastbound off and the westbound on, would be at Sarah Road, just north of 29th Street, and then the other two movements would be where it crosses 29th Street.
Yeah, because I mean, when I was reading this, one thing that's going to affect the traffic counts on Sarah Road is that Sarah Road doesn't connect to I-40. It just goes over I-40. So I didn't know, had you heard of any plans of making a connection to I-40?
As far as
right
I
now,
know,
it just goes over.
As far as I know, it does not include any plans to connect to I-40.
Okay.
So I guess I don't understand what a statement, a resolution of support is. Are we committed to putting this in the next bond, or we still have? Is that what we're voting on today? Is that we're putting this in the next bond?
I'm going to let the attorney answer that question.
You're kind of voting on that that's your intent at this point. You still would have to have a vote on the actual bond election resolution that would include that project. So you haven't actually made a final decision until you vote on that.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions on the consent docket from the council? All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll note that AT would not be a part of that motion. That item's been deferred for 2 weeks. And Mark wants to step out on 7Y, so we'll exclude that from the motion, and we'll vote on the rest of it. If you want to step out, we'll vote on the... Thank you. Well, I'm sorry. Why don't you stay here, and we'll vote on the rest of the package, then you can step out, and we'll vote on 7Y separately. Everybody ready to vote? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Now, is there a motion on 7Y to complete the docket? All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes on 7Y, and it passes unanimously. That brings us on to the concurrence docket. Are there any individual considerations on the concurrence? All right, is there a second? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We're on to item 9. These are items that require a separate vote. We'll start with a series of zoning cases. The first is an ABC issue in Ward 8 at 2410 West Memorial Road. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance on final hearing for an ABC 1. It's at 2410 West Memorial. It's for the Blaze Pizza Restaurant, one of my favorite health foods. It will be, well, as I said, an ABC 1 permit. It was approved by the Planning Commission. There are no protests. I'm sure someone's here today, but I would recommend that the ordinance be passed. I'd move for the ordinance.
All right, motion and second. Any comments or questions from anyone on item 9A1? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A2 is a zoning case in Ward 5 at 6501 Southwestern. It's currently R4 General Residential, and it would become an O2 General Office District. And David, we have one person that signed up to speak.
Yes, sir. Well, let's go ahead and hear the individual, and then
okay. Jason, Katie? Morning, Jason. You need your name and address for the record.
Jason Cady. I live in Norman, Oklahoma. The actual address.
Okay, and are you the person requesting?
I'm the architect, and I am representing the owner.
I see. So you're in favor of the zoning change?
Yeah, I just signed up in case there were questions.
Right.
Oh, okay, there are no protests at the Planning Commission, and I recommend approval.
Sounds like we're good to go then. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A3 is a zoning case in Ward 3 at 309 South Ann Arbor Avenue. It's currently I-3 heavy industrial, and it would become an I-2 moderate industrial district if approved. Larry?
Yes, has anybody signed up? This is interesting. In this particular area, the Indian Health Clinic is right across the street on Reno. That's become quite an area for providing health care to our Native American friends. And this is in an area that was at one time industrial and now is kind of changing its orientation a little bit. With no objection, and it passed unanimously by the Planning Commission, I move for approval.
All right. Anyone here hoping to speak on item 9A3 today? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A4 is also in Ward 3. The address is 7502 Southwest 59th Street. It's currently AA agricultural, and it would become an I-2 moderate industrial district if approved. Larry?
Yes, is the applicant present? There were no protests at Planning Commission. Has anybody here signed up to protest? This is a land that's contiguous to some land that's already used for industrial. It's a little unique triangle piece of land that abuts it. I move for approval.
All right, we're voting on item 9A4. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A5 is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 2500 Northeast 30th Street. It's currently R1 single family and R4 general residential, and it would become into a new planned unit development. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the applicant present by any? Okay. Just have one quick question. The purpose of this is to establish a conforming zoning for the Oklahoma City Public School Maintenance Facility so they can make upgrades and continue operations at their present site. We received some complaints, and we sent the emails to Scott on reference to the property, the portion of the property that's on Northeast 28th Street. Currently, the school district has their the rec buses parked on that particular portion, and the residents have complained that while they're sitting on their porch, they have to look at the wrecked buses across. So can you address the wrecked buses?
Well, we just, there's a certain amount of buses that we have issues with, and a lot of times we have to get parts off those buses. We don't just, once they're wrecked, we don't just give them up. So we utilize those for parts. Now, we can do something different as far as the location of storing those buses. It's just, nothing's changed on this facility of what it's been for the last 40 years. The plan was when we got ready to do some other parking and fence improvements, we realized at that time it was zoned R1 and R4, never was changed. So to bring everything up to nicer fencing and parking, we decided to do PUD. So okay. I wasn't aware about there was any complaints at all on the buses. So.
Yeah, I'm going to move to that we approve this, but I do want to visit with you in regards of the fence. I'm glad to hear about the fence repair because a portion of the fence throughout the property definitely needs some upgrades. And then I do want to talk about, I clearly understand that you all have to get parts from the buses, but I need you all to continue to be good neighbors and not place those buses in front of residents' homes. So I do want to talk to you all about that after, so we can make sure there's a good working relationship with the residents and you all.
Did you also notice that we have also demolished the old...
And so, and I think that's where the residents had concerns that the building came down, which was great, but then now since the building's gone, you all have parked wrecked buses right where the building was. They rather looked at...
Well, they were there before the building probably helped shade the side of them.
Yeah, so
we've got rid of one, we've got another problem.
So we got to work on where you all park those buses so everybody can continue to be good neighbors.
Not a problem.
So with that said, I move for approval.
All right. Anyone else hoping to speak on item 9A5 before we vote? All right, cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 9A6 is a zoning case in Ward 5 at 6910 Southwestern Avenue. It's currently got a variety of zoning, and it would be put into a plan unit development if approved. David?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This is to provide for personal storage units to be placed in this area, and there were no protests. And Bob, did the developer agree to the technical evaluation issues?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, I recommend approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We're about to vote on item 9A6. Does anyone want to speak on this item? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 9A7 is a zoning case in Ward 8 at 19217 Northwestern. It's currently in a plan unit development, and it would be put into a new PUD if approved. Mark?
Yeah, this is an ordinance on final hearing for approval of PUD 1608. It's to alter the layout of a proposed self-storage. It went before Planning Commission successfully, and there are no protesters here today that I'm aware of, so I'd move for its approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone want to speak on item 9A7? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9A8 is a zoning case in Ward 7 at 7513 Newberry Road. It's currently AA agricultural, and it would be put into a new SPUD. And John, we have a couple of people that have signed up to speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What this is to allow single-family residential use along with a landscaping contracted business on a 5-acre tract of land. Mr. Mayor, can we hear from the applicant and then from
Sure.
those protesters?
Is the applicant here? Okay. Good morning.
I'm Joy Trent at 7513. I'm not sure what you want to hear from me. What do you want me to do?
Well, can you just explain what you, again, are trying to do, and also explain, because according to staff, we received information that you tried to work with potential protesters, so can you please explain that?
Well, I actually was quite shocked to see any protesters. I wasn't aware there were any until I got here today, and they are my neighbors, so I'm not sure what the protest is. But if the council members will look at this little diagram, the little tiny square at this end, that is the landscaping shop. My proposal is to, I wish I had the original diagram. Again, I didn't expect anyone to be protesting. You go out of this shop along the back of my property, which is 5 acres, and then you go down it would be the south end of my property, which that neighbor is not here today. He has no issue with that. I have 3 maintenance trucks and 1 dump trailer truck that I use out of this property. I do have pictures here of how clean the property is. I put about $200,000 in it in the last 2 years. That little structure is completely enclosed with a 6-foot fence, completely. So my house, which sits catty-cornered, is on a hill. So you actually cannot even see my structure or any of my anything from the street. You cannot see it. Everything at night is put away more for safety reasons than aesthetic reasons, but there's never, my property is very, very clean. Now, I have pictures here. I understood from one of the neighbors that does talk to me that burning on my property has been an issue, and I did not hear from any of my neighbors that it was an issue with them. So I did pull my burn permits. The fire marshal does come out and check my burns before I burn anything. However, if this is, and I've only burned 4 times in 2 years. I also want to mention that I have lived in my property, owned it longer than some of the protesters. My property is also not on the same scale as the newer homes in that area, and the protesters all live in the newer homes. So that may be part of the issue. But I do have this from the fire marshal. And I'm also, this is just showing you. But I will say in advance, sense. Again, I'm not sure why the protesters are here, but if
Yes, it's a pretty rural area. Can you kind of describe the area, and are you indicating you live on this property?
Yes.
Okay. And is it an agricultural environment, or is it?
Well, it's the country. I would call it the country. It's between Douglas. It's right where the tornado, almost exactly where the tornado set down on Wednesday. It's between Douglas and Midwest Boulevard. So
Okay.
if you're familiar with that area at all, it's what I call country. There's 10, 15-acre tracts, 5-acre tracts. If you go down Southwest Boulevard, it's actually, or Depot Boulevard, it's actually ghettos. I mean, it really is. So you can imagine my surprise that anyone would care, because the property is so beautiful now that I've cleaned it up.
And you're planning to create a development out of this, or what are you?
No, I have a little tiny landscape company that I operate out of the back in that little shop.
I see, and you're just trying to get into the right zone.
Right. I just
zoning
want
issue.
that one piece zoned properly.
Okay.
I didn't even realize it wasn't zoned properly, which is why I'm here.
I understand now. All right, John?
Can we hear from the protesters?
Thank you. Aaron Lawrence has signed up to speak. Good morning, Aaron. We'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Aaron Lawrence, 7500 Newberry Road, which is right across the street from this. First off, we'd like to mention that in 1961, and we just pulled this up, there was, you can pass this around, a covenant in the area for no businesses. And it was set to expire in '86 unless there, I forget the wording on there, but to automatically renew every 10 years until the neighbors voted it out, and it's never been voted out. And there's a copy of it coming around to you if we just found it. So, also, she stated that you can't see anything from the road, and we have another picture of the burn pile from our front porch. The street itself is not conducive to a lot of traffic, trucks and we all own pickups out there, but the amount of trailers coming in and out, 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, our roads asphalt, and it's not going to hold up very long. It's also a dead-end road. I think there's 13 neighbors on the road. We've got 12 that signed our little petition we took around after we was made aware of what was going on. So we would ask that it be denied.
And why are you asking it be denied? I guess I'm missing that critical point. What's your main objection?
Our main objection, I'm Karen McClendon, also at 7500 Newberry Road. Our main objection is that the road is not wide enough for the traffic that is being proposed to put on it. The pictures are being passed around. Our road is not marked for 2 lanes. The road is worn off on the edges. If you get 2 trucks going down the road, one of them has to go off. Last summer, they did their landscaping business out of the property without the correct permits, and there were numerous times that we couldn't even get through our road because she had her landscaping trucks and trailers blocking the road. We couldn't get in or out. Numerous times that occurred to me. My concern is for safety and health reasons. We've got elderly neighbors in the neighborhood who have lived there much longer than she has, 40 years, and if we need an ambulance to get in and the road's blocked or the road is in disrepair. The other thing is, even though she does have her necessary burn permits, as she pointed out today, what she isn't allowed to do is bring in other people's property and dump it on her property and burn it, which is exactly what she's been doing. We've witnessed that. I've got pictures of it. That debris has fertilizer and weed killer on it. She's burning huge piles of debris that's putting smoke and pollution into our air that we're having to breathe. We moved out there to live in the country, not to live across the street from a landscaping company, and I know that I'm the person that she's talking about that hasn't lived there as long as she has. That's correct, but I'm the only person in the neighborhood who hasn't. And we are violently opposed to it due to safety, due to the smoke burning, due to the traffic on our roads, And due to the privacy, in support of that also is that we've got covenants that strictly prohibit having any businesses on that street.
Okay.
There have been no exceptions made for that. There are no other businesses on the street, and there have been no exceptions made to it, and that's why we ask for it to be opposed.
All right, thank you. Melinda Ferris?
Hi, my husband Todd and I we really like Joy as a person.
I'll need your name and address for the record.
Melinda Ferris, 7625 Newberry Road.
Okay.
And we like Joy as a person. We just feel that her property should be and should remain just as it is. We don't want it zoned for any commercial uses at all. We all moved out there to enjoy living on 5 to 10 acres and not be living near businesses. I used to live in Heritage Hills. I was a longtime resident there. I greatly enjoyed living downtown. We decided to move out to the country to get away from businesses and high traffic. And so that's why we purchased 10 acres and we built a 4,700 square foot house. We live directly north of Joy, so we share a fence. She did not live in the home last year during the mowing season. We were welcomed every morning at our mailbox when we would go to get the newspaper with anywhere from 6 to 10 workers sitting in their cars waiting for the gate to be open. We would normally sit on our porch and have coffee, but we didn't get to do that anymore and watch the sunrise because we couldn't see the view because of all of them waiting to get in the gate. I just feel that there are plenty of areas in our city already zoned for a business like she's running. I understand it would be very convenient for her if she could run her business from her backyard. It would be convenient for me if I could run my business from my backyard. But I don't do that because it's not right and it's not zoned. And there are homes on our street anywhere from like 1,100 to 5,000 square feet. Nobody lives out there so that they could live next to a commercial property. And our covenants already say that there should be no businesses. Thanks.
They brought up this document that seems to indicate that this property could not have a business located in this area. Kenny's kind of had time to examine it. Kenny, can you kind of tell us how that applies to this case, if at all?
It doesn't really apply to the city council's decision on the zoning. It is a restrictive covenant, and if the applicant's property is included within this legal description, then it does say no business, trade, or activity shall be carried on upon any tract, nor shall anything be done thereon which may be or become an annoyance or nuisance to the neighborhood. So that would be a matter of restrictive covenant has to be enforced by the landowners that it benefits in district court. So that's a district court case.
So that's more of the landowners against the landowners and this original agreement that the landowners agreed to, but it doesn't restrict the city in what we zone the property.
No.
Okay. All right. This is complicated. John?
This is very complicated. I'm going to ask for a 2-week deferral so the neighbors, so they can get together and talk about this and see if this actually can be worked out. But I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, be good neighbors and talk it out. But I am going to ask for a 2-week deferral.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anybody want to speak before we vote on the deferral? Okay, come on up. You can come up.
Again, this is the first I've heard of this, except for Mrs. Ferris, who, when I did move there, I put up the whole new enclosure so that she did not have to view the shop, nor could anyone at the shop view her property. I also put in, at their request, I would have fenced the whole line, but they didn't want the view marred, so I put in new landscaping of ivory feathers, which are a really big, large plant, to leave the landscape looking original, but still kind of give them a barrier. And I moved the driveway to the other end of my 5 acres to accommodate Mrs. Ferris. I will also say that they were burning on their property last night. So I really feel that this is more of a discrimination against blue collar because none of these people are. However, as I said, I'm happy not to burn on my property. Everything else is completely enclosed. It is an old road. It is farmland. It is out in the country. And had I been given all the information by my real estate person, I probably wouldn't have purchased it, but I did. And now I've spent a lot of money to make that one little piece very secluded so that no one is bothered. Again, you can look at my corporate documents. I have 12 employees. Mrs. Ferris has 2 teenage children, and my employees all ride together in a truck. So I find it hard to believe that 3 corporate trucks causes any more traffic than teenage children coming in and out with their friends. I feel that I'm really being discriminated against for my work.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. It's currently zoned agriculture, so I would be curious, this is probably just my own ignorance, but what is she doing now that is not allowed under agricultural?
Actually running a landscaping business with bringing employees in with the equipment.
Can she store the equipment there?
In AA, you can store equipment, yes.
And you
can store equipment that's related to agricultural use. You could, yes.
Okay. This is a fine line because, according to what I understand, it's the fact that people actually come on my property to take the equipment off. And by the way, I do want to correct my other neighbor. We do not come to work at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's dark. Obviously, we don't do that.
Okay.
And I think we're down to just 3 cars coming on the property now because they ride together. I have done everything to accommodate who I thought was just Mrs. Ferris. I didn't realize the rest of the neighbors.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is the AA requirement about businesses, is there a number of employees it can have? I live in a AA zoned area, and people operate farms, literally, and they have employees. Is there...
If the employees were to work on her property, then that would be an allowed use.
It's the fact that they leave the property.
That's right. She's conducting a business from an agriculturally zoned property where they go off-site, come in and get their equipment and then go off-site. So,
and that's specifically, well, that violation goes on all over southeast Oklahoma City, I can tell you. I mean, there's...
like she said, it is kind of a fine line between when you're doing the agricultural use on your property and when you're running a business there where you go off-site and do the business.
I mean, there are people that operate dozer services in rural areas that have employees that come and haul the dozer to the job site. There's a lot of that goes on. If it's a fine line, I'm having a hard time seeing the line. It's so fine, frankly. I mean, I just haven't lived in that kind of an area for 30, 40 years now. It's just part of what goes on in a AA zoned area. Actually, most of the area that I live in is very similar to this. There are very few 5-acre tracts. There's 80s and quarter sections, and that goes on.
It's clearly one of the issues we have with...
I don't need to be ratting out my neighbors. I don't want you out there. but I mean, it's just not unusual for people to operate agriculture, horticulturally, dirt construction kind of businesses in their property. You need that much land. There's a place north of where I live that there must be 50 old dirt moving machines, huge machines stored. The guy's operated a road building business there. Now, he may be grandfathered in because he's as old as I am, and he's lived out there a long, long time. So,
well, the agricultural zoning district's one that where there's a trend now to just buy 5 acres and make it a residential lot.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the conflict we have here.
Right.
But
Well,
our
I mean,
interpretation is that this requires rezoning for them to
Well,
do it.
you know, we have that same problem with regard to what can be done on 5-acre tracts that extends to the legislature because they're zoned AA. We can't control. You know, usually the problem is the other side. The guy is in AA and we can't make him mow, or we can't stop him from storing whatever
Right.
he wants to.
We can't work high grass and weeds or
Right.
junk and debris in AA. That's correct.
So I think a couple-week continuance is a good idea to try to maybe not only just explore this particular case, but look at the whole subject of it, because, well, it's just a much broader-based problem than one 5-acre tract there. It's going on in Ward 3, it goes on in Ward 1, it goes on in Ward 4, it goes on in Ward 7. You know, every area that's got large areas of AA zone property's got this very same problem. We just may not have neighbors that are as alert to the intricacies of the law as these people are, but the problem's out there.
Okay, we have a deferral. We need to keep the topic. Is this about the deferral? Is it about the deferral? Okay, come to the microphone then.
I would just like to comment that our street doesn't look, it looks more like a gated 5-acre tract neighborhood. It does not look like 40-acre farms. So, and we all moved out there with the understanding that we were moving into a nice residential neighborhood, but we were able to have land and gardens.
Okay,
I'm
there's a
not sure
deferral
about the
that we're discussing the deferral.
Right, I know. I'm not quite clear what you're expecting to happen with the deferral.
I think the request from the councilman was that the two parties have a discussion and advance the conversation that might lead us to some sort of conclusion as opposed to a council vote as intended today.
Okay, so you're just hoping the neighbors will change your mind?
I'm just hoping that you all will be able to talk about it, about this, because it's very clear there has not been a discussion between the protesters and the applicant. I at least want a discussion to occur between the applicant and the protester to see if there is, in fact, a common ground that can be reached. So,
okay. Thanks.
Your Honor,
David.
I don't mean to prolong this, but could I ask Bob a question? Since this is a SPUD, could you have, I'm just throwing out as an example, a limitation to where there'd be no burning taking place? Aren't we provided some guidelines to where we could implement rules that normally wouldn't be there since we are looking at a SPUD?
Well, the burn permits aren't regulated by the zoning ordinance, so I really don't think that's something that we could, I'd ask Kenny, but I don't think we could restrict it through a zoning ordinance to where they couldn't burn, unless maybe they volunteered that.
We can have a final answer to that question when it comes back on the deferral.
Well, what I'm just trying to do is create some ideas that maybe they could agree to, and if they agree to these types of issues, and then the issue of the trucks, in a sense, blocking the street prior to the opening of the business, if perhaps parking could be made available inside their fence to where that doesn't occur, or, you know, just move the fencing back to where they could park off the road while they're waiting. I'm just throwing out some possible examples. Thank you.
David, the other thing they could do is sit down and agree to amend the covenant.
All right, let's vote on the deferral. Is there a second? Yes. All right, cast your votes. Item is deferred 2 weeks. Thank you all for coming down. We're on item 9A6. It's a zoning case in Ward 5 at 6910 Southwestern Avenue. It currently has a variety of zoning, and it would be put into a new PUD if approved. David? Have we done that one? I'm sorry.
That one's been deferred for 2 weeks.
It took so long on the last one, I got lost. My system of marking them off failed me.
Thank you.
All right, so we're on 9B, right?
Correct.
Okay, and this item has already been deferred for 2 weeks, is that correct, at the beginning of the meeting? So if you showed up today for 9B, there's been a 2-week deferral. All right, item 9C is an amendment to the master design statement on an above-ground flammable liquid storage unit. We have a couple of people that have signed up to speak. Andy Nelson? Morning, Andy. We'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. It's Andy Nelson, 9113 North Bryant, Oklahoma
Okay.
City.
Can you tell me what's going on here?
Yeah, I've got a landscape company. We kind of specialize in installing trees on a decent-sized scale. So my goal was to have a facility on this 5 acres that we would bring in trees and store them there and then install them. We also do irrigation work, just mainly specifically to irrigate those trees.
Okay. Thanks. And there's somebody else that signed up to speak, so let me hear from them as well.
Sure.
If we need you back up, we'll ask. John Perry? Good morning, John. I'll need your name and address for the record, please.
I'm John Perry, 9009 North Bryant.
Okay.
Next to the property. I'm a rezoning. I want to be a good neighbor, but I'm just concerned about what I see. Stuff brought in from other people's property and dumped there. You know what I'm saying? And I just wish they'd consider holding off for a little while to figure out what we're going to do there. Rezoning the property.
Right. So you're against the rezoning for
Yes.
what specific
As
reason?
of right now.
What specific reason are you against the rezoning?
Well, like some people said before, I moved out there for a nice, quiet area, you know what I'm saying? It's been nice and quiet. I'm concerned about what I see being brought into the property from somebody else's property. I know that's his property, but being dumped there, you know what I'm saying, trees and stuff like this, it's not pretty.
Okay. John, it's in Ward 7. Do you have anything to add?
I'm going to ask for another 2 weeks deferral so we can deal with this whole idea of residential agriculture businesses. So again, I'm going to ask for a 2 weeks deferral.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. John, have you talked to Andy about this before?
I've never met the man.
Okay.
I didn't know who my neighbor, I just see some.
All right. Well, do you mind talking about it over the next couple of weeks? If you guys want to exchange contact information, then in a couple of weeks we can sit back down and see what's been resolved, if anything.
I want to be a good neighbor, but I also I'm concerned about my property value also. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, you have a right to be.
I've been there for a while, and I want to be there. Keep
We
it nice
understand
and
your
quiet.
concerns.
Okay.
Thanks for coming down. Yeah, sure. Come on up, Andy.
On the trees we brought in, were actually, the majority of that was just because of the overwhelming ice storm. I didn't know that we couldn't bring debris in, but I did bring it intentionally. We're planning on mulching all of that and recycling the mulch. So just for the record, that's our game plan for that. I've actually already got it contracted out to do that. Our equipment's just not, and I couldn't even rent equipment that, could handle this particular project. So, and also I'm planning on, the property is beautiful as it is. It's just going to get improved.
Okay.
So I'll talk with John on that and we can come back.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Appreciate you both coming down today.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck. All right, so John, you made a motion to defer for 2 weeks, and somebody seconded it. All right, cast your votes. That item is deferred 2 weeks. And do we need to vote on both of these to be deferred? There's an amendment. Okay, so we deferred both C1 and 2. All right. Item 9D is a request for a special permit for an automobile dealership on West Britton Road. Ed, are you familiar with this?
Did anybody sign up to speak?
Anybody here representing the applicant or an opposition? Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I will need your name and address for the record.
My name is Navid Ferdowsian. I live in 5809 Northwest 71st. This is my brother that I'm just here for the hearing.
Okay.
But I know that he's planning to improve as far as the construction of the area, to lighting and all that stuff on that car lot. Improve it big time.
Okay. Well, this is recommended for approval, so I move for approval.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thanks. All right, item 9D2 is a request for a special permit on a crematorium in an I-2 moderate industrial district. It's in Ward 6. Meg?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have anyone signed up to speak, Francis? No. No? Is the applicant here?
Good morning. David Vox, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is a special permit application to operate a human crematorium. Currently, my client operates a pet crematorium within the same facility, so this would just be adding the element to allow human crematorium. I will note that we did provide Planning Commission documents. The machines are designed to meet and exceed California emission standards, which everybody knows are significantly heightened compared to what we have. We have letters from a PhD in environmental engineering that submits that there is no odor or other issues that you can expect with these facilities. In fact, because these are often located in industrial areas, these are often the most clean use that you might find in an industrial area. Planning Commission did recommend approval.
David, I saw that there was one letter of protest. I have talked to some of the neighbors in the area that don't seem to have any issues with it. It is, it's interesting. It's a rapidly developing area of West Downtown, and I think the assurance that the equipment is state-of-the-art and will help protect the neighborhood is going to be important. So given that and the fact that the facility essentially exists already, I would move approval.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Did anyone else show up today hoping to speak on item 9D2? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, 9E is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9E? All right, how about a motion?
Second.
Cast your votes. 9E passes unanimously. 9F is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9F? All right, how about a motion?
Move. Second.
Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9G is a public hearing regarding abandoned buildings. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any of the items listed under 9G? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9H is a public hearing regarding removal of properties from the abandoned building list. Is there anyone here hoping to speak on any of these items? All right, cast your votes on 9H. Passes unanimously. Item 9I has to do with the financing on TIF 2 and 3, and Brent's here to tell us more.
Yes, sir. In 2014, the Economic Development Trust went out and did an RFP for a line of credit for $15 million. We received two proposals from J.P. Morgan, in which one was for $10 million and one was for $15, and they had different interest rates. At that time, we elected to go with the $10 million since we had the lower interest rate, which allowed us to, but it also allowed us to increase it as time passed and as we needed additional funds. Last year, the Economic Development Trust increased it to $18 million. And this year, we're seeking two things today. We need to increase the line of credit from $18 million to $25 million, and we also need to extend it to, which we typically do with all of our line of credit, an additional year. And so to extend it out to June 30 of 2017. Right now, we have at least 20 projects that are either under design or under construction in TIF 2. And I was looking at yesterday, we have approximately $196 million worth of investment that's coming online this year in which we will have to provide assistance to. And so what we're seeking today is to increase the line of credit from $18 million to $25 million.
All right. Any comments or questions?
No, yeah. I mean, why are we increasing it by $7 million? Why are we borrowing another $7 million?
We have 12 projects that are coming to fruition in which as they are completed, the developers are due a certain incentive payment. And so...
and we are already obligated?
We've entered into contracts, but we've also we've entered into contracts, and there's a timing delay between when the increment starts coming back and to when we provide incentive payments to them.
So we entered into more contracts than the amount of money we had, and so now we're having to...
When we analyze each project, we look at the cash flow, and for each project, as each project has to pay for itself. And this is just a tool that we've utilized since 2004 with our TIF programs to help us with cash flow. And also in the resolution that's before you today, we have the funding plan where we do that's pursuant to our debt management policies that looks at how we can pay for this. And we've looked at it at an interest rate of a little over 1%. We've looked at it at an interest rate at 5%. The TIF district has adequate cash flows to pay for those, to pay this obligation off in time.
Well, I don't understand that at all. I mean, I just can't follow it. So if maybe you and I can sit down.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I would be happy to do that.
I don't understand the whole cash flow and why we would need to increase how much we can borrow by $7 million. Like, that we didn't see it coming, or we?
No, we definitely saw it coming, but we balanced that. We could have easily gone out and just done a bond issue and be paying interest on money that we don't need today. I mean, that's one option that you have when you're doing this. We could just go do a large bond issue and paying interest on money that we don't need to have today. We've utilized the line of credit since 2004 to minimize the interest that we use, to minimize the interest expenses, which has helped us make these projects go further.
So the TIF allocations the awards that we're giving are coming from a line of credit.
Some were actually paid by a line of credit. Others are paid by cash flows as they come in every year.
Okay.
TIF District Number 2 brings in about $9.6 million, plus there's probably another $500,000 to $600,000 worth of minimum tax payments that comes in each year. We also get money from the Skirvin sales tax that all comes into TIF 2. So we have a significant amount of cash flow.
So we want to make TIF awards in excess of the amount of increment that's coming in. So we're going out and getting a line of credit to augment so that we can give more awards than the cash flow would allow at a given time.
I'm not following you there.
We have a certain amount of, if you have $100 in cash flow from increment, you can give $100 in awards, but we want to give $125, so we're going to a line of credit and borrowing $25 on future increment?
That's really the case.
Okay. What is the case?
The case is we have projects that come online. We have projects that require a significant amount of, there's a timing delay of projects. You have a project that starts today, it's an 18-month timeline. Once they complete, it goes on the tax rolls. Once it goes at the higher rate, once it goes on at the tax rolls, we don't see that increase in taxes for about 18 to 24 months. Properties that are valued on January 1 of 2016 at a higher increment, we will not see that money until June of 2017. When a project is complete, though, say in December of 15, that's what we're having happen here. The projects are complete. We've entered in agreements that we'll pay them $1 million, let's say. We don't anticipate that increment to start increasing the increment until a later date, 18 months down the road. We analyze every project to pay for itself on the private sector, and we looked at each one as they pay for themselves. So there's a cash flow that we analyze for each individual project. We do it as a program, we do it as an individual project, then we do it as an overall program. And what we're trying to do here is we look at the next 12 months. We know that we have capacity long-term to pay for our projects when they come to you, because the first thing that we look at is, does the project pay for itself based on a certain time? And then so we have that, we look at it from that perspective, then we look at it from overall TIF perspective, from the program perspective. And again, I'd be happy to sit down with you and go over all the fine details of it whenever you'd like to.
One of my problems with this whole program is it's so complicated. I mean, I've spent a good amount of my life studying it, and I can't really follow. I don't know what we're voting on today. You could ask us for $30 million, we'd vote for that. If you asked us for $35 million, we'd approve that. I mean, I don't know who's deciding how much our line of credit's going to be, but I think we'd probably approve whatever was asked for. It's very, very complicated. So yeah, I do need more one-on-one time because I'm just not smart enough to follow it and understand it.
I know I've asked you a bunch of questions about this too in the past, and it does somewhat make sense to me. My question is I don't particularly like how we have to borrow to fund it. And so is the plan for our future TIFs to do it in the same way?
Our goal is always to do it on a pay-as-you-go type basis. And there are projects where a developer comes in, does a project, and the taxes increase a certain amount, where we would basically provide an installment incentive to them over time with that increase. That would not require us to borrow money.
Right.
And that's a goal that we're trying to achieve. These are projects that were approved 2-3 years ago that we knew that there was going to be a time when, that's why in 2014 we went out and got the line of credit, because we knew there was going to be a timing issue of when all these projects come into play and when we provide the incentive payment. So what we're trying to do is just balance the cash flow needs of the TIF district and fulfill our obligations.
Do you see a scenario where TIF 2 will eventually get to the point where, I know it's getting towards the end of its life, where it will start paying as you go, or will it?
We actually have projects
continuing doing that.
We have projects that are on a pay-as-you-go basis. I'll give you an example. The Steel Yard project, we allocated over $3 million to it a year ago. That's on a pay-as-you-go basis. As their taxes increase, we'll provide the installment incentive back to them over time. The Criterion project, which opened a couple of months ago, is an installment incentive type project. The projects that we're running into where we anticipate payments, for example, would be the Mosaic project, which is the Level 2 project. That's a one-time lump sum payment. The 4th Street Apartments, Phase 2 of that, it's a one-time lump sum payment. The 21C Hotel, that's a one-time lump sum. The Lift up off of 10th Street is another one. That's another one. The Plow down in Bricktown, that's another lump sum payment. And then with the ones that in which we'll be doing the installments, like I said, are the Criterion, the Steel Yard, and other projects like that.
Okay.
But again, I would love to sit down and talk to you and go through this more. The line of credit right now is it's a variable rate. It's based on the 30-day LIBOR rate with a 60 basis point spread. Right now, we're paying 1.04% on it, which is relatively. It was below 1% for a couple of years. So it's been very useful to us. It's helped us save money from a long-term perspective. You can go out and issue bonds on this. Probably you'll pay 4 or 5% on it. So, and the nice thing with the line of credit, we try to balance out what we really need today. So the banks don't have a lot on their books, and that's from their perspective. If they've got a line of credit with us out there for $15 million, they don't want to only loan us $2 million. So that's why we just incrementally increase it at a time as we need it, and then we're able to get the good interest rate, which helps us fulfill the objectives of the TIF.
Yeah. And I don't think this is a horrible way of doing it. I just think that it's not the best way of doing it. Okay. So.
Mayor?
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One is, is the decision made as to whether it's a pay-as-you-go or is a lump sum payment? Is that just based on the negotiating skills of the borrower?
It's typically the project, and we look at a project and say, what's their request, what's the timeline, when's the increment going to start occurring, what is the increment, how quick's the payback, how does it impact their returns, if it's a lump sum versus over time. Preference would always be to do it over time. But sometimes our preference, yes, to do it over time, but there are projects that are very difficult to do, and they have returns are very, when you review them, they look very small, so sometimes a lump sum is the way to go. But every deal is different. Every project's different. The circumstances around it are different.
When you talk about pay-as-you-go, does that include a repayment of the interest that we're paying to borrow the money to make the lump sum payment?
Yes, we do include the interest rate. When we look at pay-as-you-go is actually, we don't consider the borrowing costs. On the lump sum payment, that's when we do consider the borrowing costs. Because on the lump sum payment, the money comes in.
Well, from an accounting standpoint, though, if we have to pay them, say, $50 million, I'm just, or $5 million, and we had to borrow it to get it, where's the interest expense? Is that charged to that particular project, or is it just an overall interest expense, or as the ad valorem comes in, do we offset the interest paid with the ad valorem received? I'm just trying to think about it from.
The way our project plans are set up, we have budget allocations for each individual category, and then we have plus interest costs. If we go out and borrow the money and allocate the funds to the project, we provide that. That interest cost is not necessarily considered in the allocation of the funds. But when we review a project and look at the amount of TIF requests and how much money they're going to generate new taxes, we consider not only the timing, the cash flow, we also consider if we had to go borrow the money, what would it cost? And we evaluate it to see how quickly it can pay back what we provided. So we do consider the interest cost. The TIF Advisory Committee, which we've discussed.
Ed, one feature that I don't think Brent's brought up, by allowing us to leverage some of these projects like you would in a business, it actually accelerates your return on your investments, meaning the more money and more projects you can get going, the sooner the city's going to begin generating sales tax revenue, motel tax revenue, and a variety of other types of revenues that if we waited until the funds came in, we would eventually get there. This just accelerates that process. So like when you look at businesses, often they'll be able to enhance their return on their investments by utilizing some leverage versus operating solely on their own equity. It just accelerates the success of that business, its ability to generate a higher return by utilizing leverage. Now, I can't say that's the sole reason why we do that, but it's certainly a reason to consider taking this approach.
Just one final thought, which I've always found curious about the TIF program. What are the odds that all these developments come in 7 or 8% short? They're all 6, 7, 8% short. They all need a 6, 7, 8% TIF allocation to make it. What are the odds of that? Or is it more realistic that they're configuring the development to come up 6, 7, 8% short so that then they can go, and when you analyze all this, they get that amount of allocation? I just find it unusual that so many developments are coming in the exact percent short that they just happen to know is about what we're looking for.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk?
I guess, Mayor, I was only going to say that I look at this in a very simplistic way. It's like a home equity line of credit until you finish the construction on your house, and then you're able to roll it into a mortgage and get it paid back on a regular schedule, and do so managing your interest rate in an extremely low point. I don't think it's terribly complex. I think it's a way to manage your cash flow and do it at the cheapest interest rate to the project. So that's.
All right, are we ready to vote? Is there a motion on 9I? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9J would authorize the transfer of all net proceeds. This has to do with the Gulf bonds that were sold last month. Is there a motion on 9J? All right. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9K, I understand we do not need executive session, so a motion to approve the resolution would be in order. Cast your votes on 9K. Passes unanimously. Item 9L is claims recommended for denial. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9L? Yeah, come on up.
Honorable Mayor, City Council.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm Greg Blakely, 5001 Barnsteeple Court. I'm here today representing Reserve Partners, LLC. Reserve Partners owns the building at 226 Dean A. McGee, more commonly known as the Federal Reserve Building.
Okay.
As a result of City Project 180, when the city made the improvements on the water line, we were told by the city's contractor that our water service line would not support the additional pressure. We were given a short period of time to make a decision, and we basically, to protect our tenants and be able for them to keep their businesses running, had to take the recommendation of that contractor on a short period of time to replace the service line. The issue was whether it would withstand the increased pressure. So the basic issue is through the result of Project 180, we've increased the water pressure, which has placed what I believe is maybe an unforeseen, undue burden on property owners. I don't believe it was the intention of the citizens or this council for individual property owners to undergo expenses as a result of this. So we respectively ask you to approve this claim to cover the cost of replacing the service line.
Okay. Tina, you want to tell us what the city staff learned upon looking at their claim?
There was a Project 180 project there. In the course of doing all the streets, we've done all the infrastructure under the streets during those times. In that course of that, evidently there was an upgrade to the water main to bring it up to present code. Our information is that the contractor's conversation with them was that their pipes were old and that the connection with the new up-to-code pipes might fail, that now that all of that was opened up, this would be a good time for them to upgrade their lines, which they chose to do. The city can't build that stuff not to be up to code, so that it protects old pipes around that belong to private individuals. Further, we weren't doing any work there anyway. There was an independent contractor there.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think that they did anything wrong either.
Right.
I think it's just it's kind of one of those things that happens.
Yeah, well, I hadn't heard of this coming up. Is this happen a lot? We did a lot of streets.
We did a lot of streets. This is the first claim like this I've seen.
Okay. Marcia, do you know if Project 180 impacted any other property owners in this regard and how it was dealt with?
Mayor, none, as Tina said, none were brought to our attention.
Okay. All right. Kenny, what discretion, if any, does the council have on an issue like this? Do you have any?
Well, I don't think you have any discretion on this. I think you have to deny this claim. There's really no legal basis for the city to pay it. If just us upgrading our water lines or sewer lines were sufficient, then we would be fixing everyone's private lines that connect to the city system throughout the city. Plus, here, it was the contractor that had the conversation and made the recommendation. And even if that was a negligent recommendation by the contractor, we're not liable for the negligent acts of an independent contractor anyway. So
okay.
I would say you have to deny this.
So regardless of the impact, it sounds like the council's discretion to pay is extremely limited, and our legal counsel is advising us that we do not have the opportunity to pay you even if we chose to. So I'm suspecting we're going to get a motion to deny the claim.
I would just add that we were told the line would fail either immediately or sometime in the future. We were given very little notice. we had no choice but to replace the line. It's very possible that a pressure-reducing valve might have solved this problem. Unfortunately, because of not being notified in a proper time frame, we had no choice but to replace.
Well, Kenny, is there an opportunity for them to go to district court and seek a claim against the contractor or us if they chose?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. So, I mean, your legal opportunities are not ending today, but the council doesn't have the authority to pay the claim that you place forward. Okay? All right. We have a motion on the second on the denial. Is there anybody else here hoping to speak in any of the items listed under 9L? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 10 is claims recommended for approval. Is anyone here hoping to speak on either of those issues? All right, how about a motion here? Cast your votes. And those claims are approved. That brings us to items from council. Mark, you have anything for us?
Nothing today, sir.
All right. John?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say thank you for everyone who was involved in One OKC event. It was a great success. Thank you.
Yeah. Meg?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just had a couple of things. I want to congratulate the I-89 District Teacher of the Year, Rebecca Grifoni, who was recognized last night at the Foundation for Oklahoma City Public Schools Stars of Education. She is a teacher at Linwood. She's a Linwood Lion. And there were 9 teachers that were selected, and each one of them has an absolutely fantastic story. But Rebecca was chosen to be the Teacher of the Year, and she's going to have a fantastic year. Also, at that program last night, Cliff Hudson announced that Sonic is going to be making a 5-year, $15 million commitment to funding programming in schools across the country. Much of it will be in Oklahoma, but some of it will also be in other markets that they serve. But Cliff and his wife Leslie personally, during the course of this year, did a flash fund of all of the projects for the Oklahoma City Public Schools that were on Donors Choose, and it was such a huge success that they've committed $15 million to continue to fund programming for education at a time when we so desperately need it. So we really need to recognize the Hudsons and Sonic for their generosity. And yesterday, my office team, along with the YMCA and some others, participated in Oklahoma City's Beautiful's Litter Blitz. We picked up an awful lot of trash on Broadway, and I guess an editorial comment would be, I'm certainly in favor of the $1.50 sales tax on a pack of cigarettes if it would eliminate the number of cigarette butts that we had to pick up on streets and alleys. So it was a great day, and thank you to the Y for helping to organize it.
All right. David? Pete?
Mayor, today I want to talk about the proposal that is before the legislature to extend the cigarette tax. I've got some handouts here. I've got a resolution. Just take one of each. And I have a resolution, but obviously it's not on the agenda today. So, and as you'll see it as it comes around to you, it's a bit of a work in progress. This will not solve the state's budget problem, but it will solve at least go a step toward solving the medical side of it, the health care side of it, the problems that have arisen with Medicaid, with children's health, mental health services, a number of things that go along with it. Oklahoma City has been out front in recent years with regard to smoking-related problems. And these funds would help solve that problem. It may not be a perfect plan, the one that's being proposed at the legislature right now, but it's better than no plan at all. And it's certainly better than the idea that we raise taxes a penny for education. It would at least solve the problem on the health care side for the short run, and perhaps let the legislature focus on a solution for education. It has been passed, a similar resolution, I don't have a copy of it, but a similar resolution was passed by the Tulsa Council. It just urges the legislature to increase the tax on cigarettes by $1.50 a pack. Jim, I know IMSA has done it. If I could ask him to come up and talk a little bit about how they did it and why you supported it, I'd appreciate it.
Right, and I'll be brief. In talking about the healthcare administration is they're facing 25% cuts, is what that does. And just real quickly, the facts, and this is according to the Hospital Association, the Nursing Home Association, and various other medical associations. 42 of the 75 rural hospitals are slated to close. 4 out of 5 hospitals will stop delivering babies. 269 out of the state's 289 nursing homes will be forced to close under this lower fee schedule, and about just under 75,000 people with mental illness and substance abuse disorders will lose access to state services. And there's also word that statewide physician groups have voted to stop caring for sooner care patients. So what they have proposed with this rebalancing act is a $1.50 tax on cigarettes, and that's going to require a supermajority vote of both the House and the Senate. And if that doesn't pass, then it has to go to a vote of the people. So a lot of people, if this doesn't get help, if they don't get the help, they're going to lose the services. People are going to be not able to stay at nursing homes. They're going to have to go home. Families are going to have to care for them. And it's going to have wide-ranging effects across the state. So IMSA and the Medical Association, we all support this. We're helping it. There's a great video. I don't know if you have that document with you, but I can certainly send it to you that the Oklahoma Healthcare Administration has placed out. It's a very short video, gives you all the facts and figures of it, and it's certainly some good information for you.
All right. Thank you.
One of the things that I didn't mention up front, one of the reasons the city got involved in things like control of smoking is that as a self-insured entity, one of the larger self-insured health and care entities in the state, smoking has a huge impact on what we spend on health care. The statistics for how much more money is spent on employees that smoke compared to those that don't smoke are pretty staggering. So we have a personal stake in it too. It's not just that because of all the cuts that are already in place, the ability to have your baby in Chickasha caused my granddaughter to drive to Duncan to have her baby recently. That's already happened. That's without this. And that's happening things like that are happening all over the state. The nursing home closing that will, if this goes forward, those of you that have a parent or a grandparent in a nursing home need to be cleaning out the spare bedroom, because if they close 135 nursing homes across the state, which is what it's projected to do, those people are going to have to go someplace. So like I said, it's not a perfect solution, but it puts the tax to some extent or to a great extent, where the medical need is being generated. It should save Oklahoma City money, frankly, to have $1.50 a pack tax put on cigarettes. Because it's logical, it's going to reduce the number of smokers. As you look at what's happened over the last several years, I used to think that health care, just health itself, would drive down the number of people that smoke. I'm thoroughly convinced it's the restrictions and the tax on cigarettes that are more important. I just don't think people still get it yet until you make it so difficult to smoke. In fact, I smoked for years, and I didn't quit over the money. I quit because I was embarrassed that I had to go stand outside and smoke. I felt like I just couldn't. It was hard for me to deal with that. And the money, I think, has a great deal to do with if it costs more, fewer people smoke. This has got the double-edged benefit of driving down the number of people that smoke and increasing funding that will fit into the rebalancing act as currently proposed at the legislature, try to salvage something in the health care side. It's not on for a vote today. I've distributed this in case anybody would want to join me in the resolution when it does come forward. I would, as a member of the city's legislative committee, I would ask that we ask our lobbyists to take it into consideration, the impact it has on the city and so forth. There's a possibility it may be voted on this week. So if it is voted on this week, the resolution will be too late. Even if it's to be voted on in the following week, because we have a finance committee meeting next week and it may not be appropriate. However, if it looks like it is going to be voted on in the following week, I may ask that it be put on, because that is a council meeting, it just happens to be for the purpose of meeting as the finance committee. I may ask it to be put on the agenda a week from today at the finance committee meeting to discuss it further. If you disagree, that's fine. No, it's not fine, but it's unfortunate. But if you agree, if you contact your legislature, or if the press asks you how you feel about it, it'd be the best we can do for today is to say that we think it's a good idea, and I will move it forward unless it becomes moot in the next week or so.
And I'll be glad to join you in a sponsorship for that
Okay,
resolution
thank you.
if you'd like. Larry?
Thank you.
Yeah, just a brief comment. This was announced to the IMSA trustees at the meeting last Wednesday. Unless I missed the vote, I did not hear a vote made at that meeting. Is that correct, Chair? Okay. So IMSA, as a board, has not voted on this. I spent some time between now and today doing some research on this, and there may be some unintended consequences from this legislation. There may be some exaggerations as to its impact if it's not passed. There are other measures that are being considered by the legislature to resolve this problem. The problem of funding comes from the fact that the Medicaid monies available to pay claims, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, are not sufficient to meet the demand for Medicaid, and there's more monies involved. And if the monies are not involved, then services will have to be curtailed, including how much money may be paid to IMSA for the transport of patients. So there's a lot of questions in there. I do think we have a process, Mayor, to evaluate this, and my suggestion to the people was to go to the city manager and see if he wanted to bring it to the legislative committee, and then the legislative committee vet this and then pass it on to the full council, whatever decision was made. And it seems like that suggestion has fallen by the wayside. So that's just...
That would have been the more appropriate manner, but under the guidance here of we're in the final month of the legislative session, and council can still vote it down. I don't see skipping that step being a problem.
I just bring it up.
But you're not wrong.
Okay.
All right.
We just don't have time.
Just a couple of things from Ward 3. I'd like to thank Gary Ridley and the folks at the Department of Transportation for coming on board and offering a solution to the Sarah Road situation. Gary has been a good friend of Oklahoma City in the past. Neighbors in that area who remember the Morgan Road I-40 fiasco of several years ago need to thank their lucky stars that Gary Ridley helped to pass the excess of $30 million necessary to fix that, and he continues to be a good friend, and this is another step forward in doing that. I'd like to invite the folks from Hilldale to come out to their meeting tonight at 6:30 to help celebrate the fact that the project to resurface the streets and put sidewalks on one side of the street is now going out to bid, and it should be a good meeting to say thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'd just like to join Pete also in whatever you craft. We're an interested party as a city that self-insures our health care costs for 4,600 employees. And it costs so much more to provide health care for smokers. It's about 8-9% of all health care dollars are for tobacco-related illnesses. It's about 130 to 180 billion. It's an enormous amount of the American healthcare system is for the consequences of cigarette smoke. And one thing I don't think we do very well in the healthcare industry is we spend a lot of time trying to educate the public and patients about how tobacco and nicotine can kill you, heart attacks, cancer. We don't spend very much time explaining how it can make your life miserable while you're still alive, how it drastically increases the rate of infection if you have any surgery, how it degrades the spine and causes acceleration of arthritis and degeneration of the spine and nerve pain and all kinds of things that we're spending with Medicaid that are related to this nicotine. And so I think we have use tax, we have sales tax for things that people engage in, and this is really a way to recoup some of those increased healthcare costs related to tobacco. Thanks.
James? Okay.
Mayor, if I could, I forgot something, and I'm looking at Doug Cupper out here, so I wasn't paying attention. We're already in May, but I am hosting a Ward 6 Parks meeting at the Hall of Mirrors on Monday night, May the 9th, so that people can come talk about what they would like to see in this upcoming 2017 bond issue. So thank you, Doug, for helping to organize, but Ward 6, Monday night, May 9th, Hall of Mirrors, 5:30.
5:30, okay.
Thank you very much.
City manager reports.
Yes, Mayor, Mike Carrier is here to give us the third quarter FY16 CVB report.
Thank you, Mr.
Morning,
Powers. Mayor, council members, good to see you all again. Come to you to talk about the end of our third quarter. As are you, we're on fiscal year, and so we have had a good year this year. Through three quarters, we are pretty much on track with where we should be. In the quarterly report, one of the things you will notice is that our expenditures from our contract budget are right on target at 74%, and the expenditures from the 111th Fund are only at about 58%, and I would remind you that that is because that is a reimbursement account. Events have to take place, and then provided that those events are done the way they were supposed to be done, et cetera, then we reimburse the producers of those events. So we will indeed spend about, looks like about 95 to 97% of that money this year once we get through. In terms of our sales goals this year for convention and sports sales, we're in excess of 90% of our goal as of the end of third quarter. Our pipeline continues to be full with prospective new meetings that are looking at Oklahoma City for the future. 111% of our goal with meetings that are as far out as October of 2020 that we are working on right now. All of our sales and services staff have been busy. We have been extremely fortunate to have a lot of site visits this year, people that are coming here looking at Oklahoma City for future. We have provided services to 180 groups as of the end of third quarter, and the fourth quarter is always a busy quarter for us, so we know that that will continue to go up. We've done a lot of traveling this year. The sales and services staff have traveled to 39 trade shows this year, where they have generated 62 leads and 133 prospects for potential new business. The equine and livestock program, we continue to see great results from the work that the city has done at the fairgrounds. We've had some very good spring shows. We see some real promise in the summer and again this fall as the industry continues to rebound from some past issues that they have had. But we continue to hear great comments and remarks from our friends in the equine industry. The motor coach business has been down a little bit, but again, spring is a very, very busy time for us, and we're looking forward to the opening of the Matisse exhibit at the Museum of Art. That's the type of blockbuster that will produce increased results in the motor coach and group tour market, and we appreciate what the folks at the Museum of Art and Michael Whittington have done over there in cluing us in early on so that we do have plenty of time to help them promote what is happening with the Matisse being a great example of that. Our Certified Tourism Ambassador program continues to be a strong program. We've got a little over 240 CTAs in the program right now. There are people that rotate in and out of that because they may be leaving the industry or leaving the community, but it continues to be a real asset for us. We also continue to see a lot more promise and a lot more results from our social media program. The hashtag COKC program has taken off and done a lot of good things. If you are flying in and out of Will Rogers and you're downstairs waiting for your bags, take a look at the new banners that are up down there over top of the baggage carousels that show snapshots of photographs that were taken by visitors or other people around the area that we are mounting and putting on those so that people can actually see what goes on in Oklahoma City. So also want to thank you for the positive vote this morning on the concept for the convention center. We are very excited about what's happening there, about the design that has been presented, and look forward to the schematics and design development that goes in with that so that we can move forward on that program. Thank you for your all's continued support, and we'll see you again next quarter, if not before, and be happy to answer any questions.
In general, what percentage growth, if any, are we seeing in convention and visitors coming to Oklahoma City?
We're not seeing a lot of growth right yet, and part of the challenge with that is that while we have a lot of new hotels, we don't have new space to sell. You know, you can't put 100 pounds into a 50-pound bag, you know, and it's kind of that same situation. We're seeing a movement of people that are visiting us staying in other parts of the city from where they have stayed in years past. So our hotel, for instance, our hotel tax is up about 1% this year. That's as much rate driven as it is anything else. We're just under 2% above where our budget was projected to be this year. So we're seeing a movement of people within the city, but we're not seeing a lot of new coming because we just don't have the additional space that we need, that the new convention center, the new facility at the fairgrounds, some other things of that nature will help provide.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Mike? Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you all very much.
Is that it for city manager report?
Well, there's 2 or 3 others on the that are included in your packet, and staff is available to answer questions if there are any.
Okay. And citizens to be heard, we have Joe Sarge Nelson. Is Sarge out there? There he is. Joe, you're up. Good morning.
Joe Sarge Nelson. Well, so far nothing's changed. I'm still, well, he's not sitting behind me anymore. Anyway, I guess I'll start. Anyway, I'm standing up here talking and knowing that you're listening and hearing. Never mind, I ain't even going to worry about all that. Well, to make a long story short, I made a promise to a lot of people I wouldn't raise a ruckus. And I noticed that everybody that I've been talking about left the podium. But anyway, in 5.5 weeks, my investigation will be complete. And I've gotten even all the way into the oil and gas business and everything else, long-distance phone calls, Las Vegas, Nevada, and talked to several big gentlemen in that business. It seemed like the 80s was quite a big year for one of our council people. And considering the fact that she was vice president of one of the banks, and there's quite a history. And when I said she was the kingpin of everything, believe me, she knows her job and she knows it well. But that doesn't excuse the fact that my principal thing is what I brought before the council before. I'm staying with that issue. I'm not backing down. And in 5 weeks, there will be a court appearance. And but I'm letting the council know in advance that it's nothing to do with the council per se as a whole. But I'll fight the fights I can fight, and the ones I can't. Y'all have a nice day.
All right. Thanks, Joe. All right. No executive session today, so we're adjourned.